Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the second meeting of the Better Together Challenge family. We, the presenters and all the community of the change makers around the globe had an opportunity to meet each other in 2019 in South Korea when the World Culture Open Organization invited us on a challenge to showcase how we can change the world with ideas and how we can become agents of change no matter our background in terms of cultural heritage, beliefs, sexuality, or any other diversity related issue that usually surfaces when we are trying to introduce policies and when we are trying to introduce ideas to the world. So today we are welcoming you in our second meeting. This meeting is already discussed among the family. And without further ado, I want to introduce to you our first segment related to how we coped with the epidemic outbreak. And I give the stand to Nada to welcome you all in this first segment. And we will be joining you with commentary and questions during the event. I need to let you know that each segment will last up to 40 minutes, and we will have a 5-minute break between the segments before moving on to the next chapter of our discussion. So everybody welcome and have fun. And may this be an interesting conversation for you all. Nada?
Yes, can you hear me well? Hello, can you hear me? Yes, perfect. So thank you all for your time today. And let me first introduce myself. I'm Nada. I'm basically from Tunisia. And well, I'm a member of a Tunisian NGO called Cultural Club Ali Belahouane. And also I'm a product manager working with a French agency. And I'm an artist. I'm a painter at my free time, in my own words. So today's topic that I'm going to introduce about, I want to share with you how I coped with the lockdown and the breakdown, and also I want to hear your experience about this the lockdown and the outbreak. But before that, I want to share or to tell you a short story that it will not take long of your time. It's the starfish story. Maybe some of you know about this story because it's a famous story. And I remember I heard this story when I was 6, and it changed my way of seeing things. So the story is the following. One day, an old man was walking along the beach, and he saw a little girl picking up something very gently and put it inside the water. He approached the girl and said, What are you doing?" She said, "I'm picking up starfish and putting them back into the sea because the tide is gone. If I don't do it, they will all gone." The old man said, "Little girl, there are miles and miles of beaches. There are hundreds and hundreds of starfish. You can't make a difference." After listening, the little girl said while picking up the starfish and putting it back in the water, "I made a difference to that one." The old man had to think about what the little girl said, and then he bent down and picked up the starfish and do the same as the little girl. And soon after, many others came and did the same. So after hearing this story when I was 6, so I changed my way of seeing things. So last year, when the COVID started to spread everywhere, I had to move suddenly from the capital where I live and work to move to my hometown because there were rumors about the lockdown. And I wanted to be with my parents because they were living alone. At that time, I didn't understand the meaning of a lockdown. It's true we had a revolution on 2011 in Tunisia, but this time is different. The virus for me didn't seem like a big deal, but outside, everything was locked. The news were showing video about people fainting in the street. The number of deaths is keep rising. So I had to ride my car in a hurry to my hometown. The big surprise, once I arrived there, I have noticed that I forgot my luggage, where I had all my clothes, my sketchbooks, my brushes, and my paintings. It's my only and my paintings. is my only way of fighting depression and release my thoughts. So I didn't know really what to do. And also, I didn't have any clothes except the winter clothes that I was wearing at that time. And I know the weather would become hotter in a few weeks. So maybe it wasn't really a big deal, but that was my first small issue and weird experience that I had to deal with. I felt like a homeless in my own home. So how to adapt and set myself to this new environment. Also, I had to get used to the fact that from that day, I will have to work from my home and deal with all the real life stress locked in my home without my painting. So, after a few days of overthinking, I decided to change my everyday routine. Like, for example, drinking my morning coffee on the rooftop or enjoying the peace and quiet sky view. Learning new things like doing yoga, which helped me a lot to release my stress. Learning how to draw digital art and sketches. And it was a surprise for me because I have tried this in the normal life, but I couldn't do it. Even baking cakes, me who hated eating sweet food. Take a long walk every day, me who prefer to drive even for short distances. At that time, I remembered the starfish story. I have realized that I made a difference to myself because I've tried, I wanted to do it, and I've done it. So the situation in the country seems to get worse to worse. The number of infected people kept rising. Also, the health center in Tunisia isn't good at all. We don't have the equipment for the rising number, for this rising number. So I started to ask myself, you homeless person in your own home, what can you do? How can you help others during this situation? So I had this small idea in order to sew masks, and my mom helped me with this. And we gave it for free to my friends, my family, and neighbors, especially those who had to go out from their houses and work. So this was the first thing that I've done. I was happy for doing this, but I felt like it wasn't enough. And the economical situation wasn't really good. And also it was Ramadan at that time. You know, in Ramadan, people are fasting and the work will automatically go down during Ramadan, and this means not enough money to gain. So I've called my cousin, who is also an activist with a Tunisian NGO there, and asked him to gather all his good close friends for a short meeting. During that time, I have told them about the starfish story, and I guess it had the same impact on them it had on me when I was 6 years old. So they decided to volunteer and to check the family in town in need, and it started like that. Everyone was helping with what they can: food, money, everything, clothes. So it was Ramadan, and you can see people sharing and fighting together. Maybe it wasn't a lot, maybe it wasn't a big deal, maybe we couldn't help everyone, but deep inside me, I know that at this moment we made a difference to some people or maybe some family. This was my short story, and this is how I coped with the lockdown. I know the pandemic is not over yet, and I know that many family are facing hard situation. Many have lost family member or a friend. Many missed giving a hug to a friend, which I miss a lot. And I believe that together we can deal with this sorrow. Together we can still find light in this dark road. So this is my short story, and I'm ready to hear about yours. So I think maybe Paulina wants to start sharing, or Sherry wants to start sharing your story.
I could go. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi everyone. I'm
Hello.
Sherry. Hi. Yeah, I'm based in Singapore. It's 10 p.m. right now, and thank you everyone for having me here. For my work, I founded two ground-up groups, so they are not registered entities. One is called Autoimmune Diseases Singapore. So I actually have an autoimmune disease that I was diagnosed about 20 years ago, and it's affected throughout my whole life. And actually, when I think I don't realize the gravity of situations till it becomes really very real. So it was only in March, I think, when Singapore went into our own lockdown. That was when the gravity of the situation dawned onto me, and how people with autoimmune diseases like mine are. I was becoming very paranoid because at that point of time, I think there was a point of time when my husband could still sort of go out to work, but every day when he comes back home, I'll be like, who do you meet today? Like, do you eat with the person? Like, was your mask off? And, kind of like the paranoia was setting in. But I also found that sort of the way to overcome that, and that I really relate to your starfish story, was that in that lockdown period, I was thinking, even with the limited things that we could do and the restrictions in the country as well, what could I do? So I live in we call them like HDB flats in Singapore, where actually we have many neighbors that is just beside me. On the same floor, I have like another 14 neighbors. But because of maybe our culture, our very closed door, we actually don't really know our neighbors as well. Everyone's behind their closed doors, even before the pandemic. So what I did was I bought like hand sanitizers, which was a little bit in short supply at that time, but I could manage to find them. And I hung them on their gate with a note and with a photo of my husband and I, to assure them that it's not, that we are real, and to offer help. Like, if you need help to buy groceries, if you need help to get something, I give you my number, just feel free to contact me. And actually no one asked for help, but in return, they did send some very lovely messages, saying that, we don't need any help, but, we really appreciate that reaching out, even though we have never met face to face. And then I will tell another story of just before lockdown. So that was March. March was, we only had lockdown for 2 months, March and April. But the scare started in about end January to early February here. So the news started to come in. There were a few cases that were in Singapore. And what happened first then was panic buying of masks. You can't find any mask in the supermarkets. And then there was also a panic buying of groceries. And all our volunteering at the sort of like nursing homes here had to stop, right? Because of the risk of infection. So in a way, I was also like, oh, okay, kind of volunteering was my life. And then what do I do? And then I thought of the starfish story, because every day in the newspaper, we were reading about, okay, like, maybe today there's 5 people and they are sent to this hospital. And to be honest, a lot of us didn't know about this place till the pandemic broke out, which is called the National Center for Infectious Diseases. I mean, we didn't really know that maybe we knew that the name, but we don't really know what this place does. But every day in the newspaper, you will read about it. But, and it was just like a statistics, like 5 people being sent, next day 6 people. And I was thinking, everyone else was panicking about masks and groceries. But what about these healthcare staff? Like, every day they are risking their lives, to serve the country, to protect us. But there was no mention, like of their work or anything. So I just had this like small idea that, okay, maybe I will do my part to appreciate these healthcare staff in this institution. But I had kind of no idea what I was getting myself into, because I'm actually an individual. And I just emailed them and asked, like, I want to do something for you. And how many staff are there? I expected actually a few hundred, which I think I could manage. But the number that I got back was 7,000. And, but, there was no backing out, because, I already like put out my offer. So that was when I realized the strength of community and asking for help. Asking for help doesn't come very naturally to me, but because I sort of push out on my social media and asked people to help me, the offers of help really came pouring in. And besides the care bags, I was so determined to get the 7,000 personalized thank you cards. Like, I wanted people to draw and write thank you cards so that each healthcare staff could receive not just a care pack, with snacks and all that, but that card that they could hold with them. I didn't realize what a feat that would be, but when I called out for help, and I thought, okay, schools were the places that were still operating. So I kind of targeted schools so that the teachers could get their students to write. And I think as I asked one school, like many more schools came on. and we managed to deliver it in 3 weeks. But during that 3 weeks, because I tried to shoulder everything myself, my phone was just kind of like ringing 24/7, and then the WhatsApp messages, people calling, and people asking like, what am I doing? What is this about? How can I help? But all that coordination, actually, I think within 2 weeks of it, I was so burnt out. And at a point of time, I asked myself, is it worth it? Do I really need to be so insistent about 7,000 thank you cards? Do they matter? Like, I mean, I wouldn't know. I mean, at the end of the day, I thought I wouldn't know, because we will just give it to the institution and they will pass out and I wouldn't know. But 3 weeks later, when everything was, done and dusted with a lot of tears, sweat, a little bit of blood, we started to receive a few messages on our social media. And I was so touched because the healthcare staff was so busy. That was at the start of the COVID period. But they especially went to our social media to, send us the photos and to thank us. And there was this nurse who wrote, morale booster, proud to be a nurse. Thank you for the goodies and the love letter. I love the message. It really meant for me, and it touches my heart and causes my eye drip. And then I was tearing when I read her message, because I knew that it touched one person's heart, and that was all it matters. So Nada, really thank you for that story, and I just wanted to share, because sometimes I think we don't know what we do if it has some ripple effects, but I think it does. Yeah, and that whatever little bit that everyone is doing, I think thank you for your contributions. Maybe I'll pass the time to Paulina.
Nanda, you want to add something? I don't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now it's okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Sherry, for sharing your story with us. And well, I totally agree with what you have said. Actually, with small details, with small actually gesture, you can make a really big difference to someone, to something. So I want to hear Paulina's story. If you want to start.
Yes, again, I wasn't actually sure what to share, what we supposed to share, but it was like about our personal experience of going through pandemic and stuff, and going back a year ago when we met last year on this day. For me, life was really good. The first lockdown, it was first, of course, when just all the pandemic started, I was a bit freaked out. But then it settled down, and during the first lockdown, I felt like vacations. Finally, I didn't need to plan anything because I travel and move around a lot. I was like, I can just do the stuff I didn't have time to do for a long time. So I was being at home, like doing a lot of stuff that I didn't really had too much intention or motivation to do before, reading books, chatting to some of you guys and to my friends, being locked down in different places. So for me, it was a really good time to, just to calm down, relax. And I was alone. I wasn't bored at all. It was really, really a great time, to be honest. Just, and just giving myself a permission to spend the whole day on the sofa was also nice. So while I was reading people like going crazy in lockdowns, like being bored, la la la, I couldn't relate to that at all, because for me it was like it was just relaxing. And good. So the thing is that after actually what to add. So it was good. The first lockdown for me was a really good experience. Of course, in terms of my well-being, all was really doing really well. Of course, there was a lot of stresses around general life in general, but it was okay also. My profession, I do their seminars on mind-body connection, and I teach people the tools, brain retraining to help restore life and health from chronic illnesses. And usually, actually, it has this Brain Drink. It's a British program that has been on air for 20 years and only offline. So I would meet with my clients in the group settings, in some room, and teach them all that and coach them to restore their health. But with the pandemic, when the pandemic started, we had to cancel all our seminars, of course, because we have already have people with compromised immune systems in our classes. So we didn't want, for them to kind of get the virus and die at our seminars. So all of that was canceled, and I thought that, I lost my income. But luckily, the designer of the process, he redesigned it, and since last year, actually, yes, 10th of April, we were allowed to do the seminars online. So it was also kind of a benefit from the pandemic for me, that now I can reach more people because I can teach the same tools in online. And this kind of was really good for me. It was like a professional present, because I move a lot around the world and not necessarily not needing to be in one place in Moscow to conduct the seminars was beneficial for me. The thing what happened after the first lockdown, everything was really good. I was enjoying the horror and all that stuff was kind of a bit away from me. But just after the world has started to get out of the first lockdown, yes, some of you, for my friends on Facebook who might saw that, my best friend died in an air crash. So actually, my life became a lockdown, my personal lockdown since then. So I've spent the whole year being on my own. I just couldn't communicate with people. So it was been so horrible that the pandemic and all this normal pandemic sufferings were not part of my life. It was kind of very super distant. All the troubles of people who cannot go to the bars, to restaurants. I was like, to me, it seems so insignificant to worry about that stuff, the pandemic limits, the pandemic imposed on people, just because, when you are still alive, I think life is already good. And for me, the loss of my best friend was such a tragedy that everything that people more kind of get worried about the pandemic, I cannot worry about that just because I don't have a source for that, because I'm in a self-imposed lockdown since my friend died. So for me, reading about people suffering about all these problems, but it depends actually on the different country, because I guess for most of you guys, like in Vietnam and Singapore, you don't really have the pandemic we have in Europe. So it might be different for you to to be around that, but for us in Europe, it's for people it was a huge issue, not for me, because even without pandemic, I would still be quite isolated because of my loss. So that's the story that I can share.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Paulina.
Very brave message.
Yes. Yes, I agree with the first part, that the pandemic is not just about lockdown, but sometimes you need to take a pause in your life and just relax, chill, and think. And sorry for your loss too. So
another thing that probably we need to deal with, is anybody else interested in the fact that a few days before the epidemic outbreak, we were all in Asia, because I know that me and Lazarus faced an illness when we got back in Greece, and it was really suffocating and nobody knew how to deal with it. And I truly believe that we were the misfortunate ones to be carrying the virus earlier than the rest of the community and the population. So for me, the first lockdown was really frustrating, and actually started after getting back from Korea. Had anybody else been sick after that, after our trip?
no.
Any guys? No. So no worries, just the thought of something that went down. So anybody else wants to share their first lockdown experience, or how they coped with the full lockdown experience? Have anyone faced travel bans or anything like that? Because it was really difficult and we were giving a fight to bring back Greeks that were locked in India. So anyone else with such an experience that would love to share? Because for us, it was really difficult. They didn't have any kind of communication. They weren't able to collaborate with the officials in India. So it was really difficult and we all got really anxious about it. No?
I guess
I can say a few words. So when the pandemic started, actually it was already ongoing and rolling in March. Yes, Russians still continued to travel. So although everyone understood that world is going to get shut down very soon, people still continued to travel. And I think for me, it was a big question whose responsibility is that they are stuck abroad and cannot get home just because people kind of understood that it's not going in the right direction. So maybe it's better to sit home and not to get yourself into these very interesting situations. So because in March I was traveling, I realizing what was going on. I actually rearranged my plans and came back to Russia just before everything was shut down. So I kind of took responsibility for myself. A lot of people didn't. So one day they were quite unsatisfied with the governmental response to these flights and stuff. And for me, it's actually quite interesting how was looking how people approach that, like not accepting their part responsibility in the fact that they cannot get home, because being blind to the fact that ongoing pandemic still continuing to travel, going abroad, it was a bit tricky. So I kind of was interested to watch how people react to these people, tourists trained abroad. No, I don't know. I don't have a conclusion, but it was an interesting process to see how actually people show their responsibility in those kind of situations with moving around during the pandemic.
I have a couple of things to add. Can you hear me, first of all? All right,
Yes.
all right, because I was facing a technical problem, but we solved it. I have to admit that I felt like an animal trapped in a zoo during the first lockdown, meaning that everyone was in their apartment, and except the beautiful possibility that we have through the internet and the social media of communicating, I wasn't able to find a true communication on this. And above that, especially at nights when everything was in an absolute silence, I could literally hear the animals, the insects, and in a exaggeration, even the plants talking. So it was a very strange feeling living in a big city, because I'm living in Athens for the moment, and I came back in Athens from a mountain that I was living 6 months ago on a top hill, which was the only habitant in a perimeter, let's say, of 2 kilometers. So I went to Korea, and after Korea, I went to Athens. And when I was in Athens, bam, lockdown went. And I couldn't realize, actually, this gave me the ability to realize that sometimes the society and the system that it's supposedly to support us treat us like animals. So they keep us in the beautiful cages. They give us the beautiful technology, which, by the way, we are creating the technology. They throw us a portion of food and some medicine and perhaps some benefits from the state. And they tell us, guys, you have to stay at home because now we have the pandemic. So I was, confused. What's going on? I was very worried about my friends, about my family, about all the lovely faces in the world I've ever met. And after a month of the lockdown, I started writing a book, because this was the main. This is actually the main form of art which I'm capable to express myself. And on the other hand, I was writing in the book. On the other hand, I was writing, let's say, love letters, meaning I was expressing my feelings towards to other people, saying, "Hey, how are you? I'm Athens. Where are you now? How is your family? How's your health? Do you have any plans? Are you still dreaming about your life?" And when I got the first responses, I realized that perhaps we're all together in the same zoo, despite the country that we are living in. But the thing that kept my heart beating fast is that no matter how things are hard or not, still the people that have a common mindset in order to cultivate the community, to invest in feelings, and I'm highlighting invest in feelings. This is the most important thing. And for me, it was quite difficult because I couldn't do anything more. What to do? Okay, I saw the whole Netflix. I read books that I haven't read before. I tried to learn some Arabic through an online course, but again, my body was locked in, and my mind was keep traveling. And after the first lockdown, when things came back into a normality, which wasn't a normality at any case, I was trying again to find a job, to reestablish some relationship with my partners and business partners. And I found out that everyone was so worried about their health, and they couldn't actually, do business as usual. And I thought, okay, if this pandemic goes over a year or 2 years, are we going to collapse? Because no matter what, the earth will keep moving. The plants are going to survive. The earth has a different mechanism rather than the mechanism that the society has bring to us. And also I look at some statistics that the average noise of the earth dropped down. Do you know what this means? It means that the factories weren't working. The buses stopped going to we didn't have a public transportation. We didn't have everything. So the hope that I found in this whole spectrum or frame gave the ability to the earth to breathe again. Of course, I carry a lot about humans, but if we don't have a home to live in it, what's the point? Are we going to Mars soon? No, I don't think so. And my fantasy was keep going on and going on and going on. And then when I started to move things, the second lockdown came. And I said, okay, this is enough. I don't care about my health anymore. I have to do something, because living is a different thing to have a life. So I have to choose. Do I want to be a live zombie or a live human? So I found the balance somewhere in between. But believe me, it cost me. And still I'm feeling like a tiger in a cage, meaning that if I go out again, I will be a child with 100 toys, and I don't know which toy which I want to interact and play with. And under some strange, let's say, situations, I found again the energy and the appetite for life. Life is it's what we are doing right now. Life is the way we behave towards others, towards the minorities, towards other people that have in need. So do we have a cause? Everything, at least for me, was a deep philosophical trap, which still I can't say I have found a way to get out of it, because I'm still working on it, and still remains the big issue. The pandemic was just the cause, so I'm looking forward to see the effects after it. Just my 2 cents on it, because we are many here, and I want also to hear your voices and stories. Thank you for listening to me. Looking forward to listening to you too.
Excellent, thank you. So I don't know. Yes, Mario?
Yeah, what I was trying to share with you guys was the fact that during the first lockdown here in Greece, things went down easy because all of the people were complying with the guidance of the governmental services. But what happened here in Greece was a big fallout on how our government treated the pandemic, at least in the first summer, because from being the safest country, we became the center and the epicenter of being one of the most devastated ones around Europe. Because what we did last summer was that we actually allowed people to travel to Greece without having restrictions of any kind. And after we opened up our touristic industry, which is a main cause for Greece, and it gives a great amount of money, it supports a great amount of the Greek economy, we felt short on a personal level because we felt like we did something wrong. And for me personally, it was not easy to cope with the fact that I had to deal both with my personal responsibility and the responsibility of society around me, because many people thought, okay, I will open up my store just for a few months and then I need to make some money, which is the big issue at the moment here in Greece. But I don't know how to deal with up to this moment. I don't know how to deal with the frustration that I'm feeling inside when I'm listening to contradictory commenting on behalf of governmental agencies. And I don't know if the same applies to your countries. And it's really hard for me as a person to realize the fact that I'm supposed to be one of the so-called population in need because I have been fighting cancer for long. And as Seri told us, autoimmune diseases were also bursting at the same time. And I felt short on realizing what my place is, where do I stand with all these things. And I actually locked myself up, and this wasn't easy for me because I didn't know how to deal with myself and my health issues, but I had to comply with that, with what everybody else was telling me. And now I realize how harmful this has been for my health, because nobody was taking into account that except the coronavirus outbreak, there were also many diseases at large in the populations struck by the epidemic. And I realized that probably initiatives such as the one that Seri has been carrying for the past years are of great importance for people around us, because although we don't have the opportunity to show that we are in need of help, this was a time to reflect on how necessary are the measures that are supposed to be supporting diseases that cannot cause death on an immediate way, rather than having people dealing with them for their whole life, like chronic diseases of so many different kinds. So I believe I haven't managed to cope with the fact that so many people were left behind. And as one of them, I want to share with you the fact that it was really, really, really difficult to even find a doctor to treat me. And I believe many people around the world had the same problem. And I wanted to share the fact that we need to take a look on people with chronic diseases, not once in a lifetime, but one time too many. We need to be close to them. We need to realize that they won't reach out for help, and we need to reach out to them. And I believe this is what I want to hold on to after this meeting today, that Seri and Nada and Paulina showcased to us that in so many different cases, we should be the ones to reach out and not wait for somebody to reach out to us. So for me, it's really important that today I'm meeting with people that are willing to reach out to the ones in need and not just wait to be reached. And this is of great importance. And thank you, people, for sharing this with me. I believe it's huge support to us all.
Yes, Catalina?
Hi.
Hello.
I didn't know if I should intervene. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. And as a counter side to what Marius was saying, My story is a little bit different than how yours was, especially with people with other medical needs. So I really panicked, but not for myself, right? In the lockdown, when I first found out what is coronavirus, how is it happening, especially because I was living with my friend who's Italian, and I knew from her and from medical friends what was happening in the hospitals, you know. So I panicked for my family, and I have many people that I know with the chronic disease in my family, and um, you know, I started to reach out to them and tell them, hey, don't do this, do that. I don't know, take care of you. And it actually kind of, how to say, it didn't go so well, you know. Most of them still don't believe in the virus, and they don't want to get vaccinated. So actually, I had to stop it. I had to realize that if I hear the news that, you know, someone in my family had passed, or, you know, this kind of things, I should just understand that it is possible. It wasn't my responsibility, and that you know, I don't have anything to do. Really, I had to actually make peace with this thought, you know, because it really didn't go as I hoped. I don't know why in Romania people are so opposing. Actually, even right now, there are protests happening in the whole country with the new restrictions and so on. And there's still a lot of people in my family who don't want to get vaccinated. I got my vaccine, well, my first dose at least. But yes, it's hard, I know. And I guess the fact that you don't know exactly what it is and how it is, the fact that the media spreads very weird information, the fact that people don't actually check their sources, it's, I don't know, a pandemic of something else. And going back to my story, I mean my personal story, I just wanted to say that right after right after the Better Together, I left Korea. I came back to Romania. I realized that I don't want to stay here, so I still wanted to travel. I went to visit my friend in Estonia, and in March 2019, I was still there, and I was supposed to come home, but I decided not to, because I knew how the Romanian medical system is, how Romanian people are. And in Estonia, you know, there are only 1 million people. So I was like, okay, I can actually go around. So fortunately, I wasn't, and also I was going through a period in my life. And to be honest, when the lockdown came, I was like, oh, good, I don't have to make excuses for not wanting to go out anymore. You know, it was kind of like that. So that was the good thing for me. And what I did in this period, I actually focused on myself, on my mental health, and I worked a lot with myself. And I just didn't feel it so hard. I didn't feel this close environment being so bad for me, but also because in Estonia the restrictions were not so bad. You could actually go out without wearing a mask, and in the summer I even volunteered for a music festival, so you can imagine that the life was pretty good. I even I donated blood, you know, I tried to help as much as I could. And now I decided to come home because things went quite crazy in Estonia as well. And because you were also asking about some situation when you were not allowed to go home or these kind of things. I came a month ago, and I had the problems at the airport, because even airports and flight air companies, they're actually, I don't know, they're not very well programmed to deal with this system like this, because I don't know, one country says, okay, if you stay here in transit, you don't have to have the test, but if you go to the airport, they don't let you, travel and so on. So for the first time in my life, I actually had to call the embassy. So I was really lucky to have been able to fly that time. So there was a little bit of an issue, and I also heard about other friends having problems. I'm not sure how you guys feel about, I don't know, the virus, the pandemics and everything that it is, but I'm seeing around me people who even had COVID and they said that it was really, really bad. They weren't human for 4 days or 5 days, and yet they still, don't quite believe in everything that is happening. So I honestly don't know what to believe in, and the only way I think that I can cope with is just, wear the mask, try to see how well I can survive with these restrictions, and hope for the best. Yeah.
Yes, we hope that
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you so much, Catalina, for sharing this with us. So I think it's time to jump to the next topic, which will be hosted by Mario.
So, actually, we've been discussing this already, so I believe we can continue on discussing, because our next topic is on how do you believe societal, economic, and cultural roles are reshaped in relation to individuality. That means beliefs, norms, intention, or attitudes that you feel like the epidemic changed within and towards other people. And just to make a short intro on this one, I believe that for me personally, it was really difficult to cope with the fact that my fellow citizens were separating people in two different categories. The first category were the locals. So a lot of people were thinking on an ethnological level, trying to showcase that it was of great importance to support our own kin. And this was in contradiction to the fact that Greece, as an epicenter of major refugees flows, what I saw was people not caring for other people being locked up in centers of and camps that were spread all across the country. And I believe that what changed within was the fact that my personal belief of people being ready to accept that we are on this all together wasn't that much of true. And I would love to share more on this one, but I believe I would love to hear from Jasmine, who actually felt like sharing her story with us. So Jasmine, I give the stand to you.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing hearing everyone's stories. Thank you so much for sharing and for also giving me the space to share. Initially, I thought I would speak to the first discussion acts, the thematic acts, but then I was really drawn to the keywords of socioeconomic as well as cultural. I've never attended, a chat or a discussion as a parent, like really owning my identity as a parent. I think there was always I always felt this pressure to say like, no, I'm a professional in cultural facilitation, or I'm an artist. Somehow, the idea of saying I'm coming here as a stay-at-home parent just didn't occur to me. I got to a point where I even wondered, should I delete my LinkedIn? Because to be honest, I'm a stay-at-home parent. I don't have an income. I haven't had an income for the last 2 years. this pandemic has forced me to really interrogate myself and reevaluate my role in society. And I finally admitted to myself, I devalued myself. I devalued the role of a stay-home parent without wanting to do it, but I did it. When I saw a therapist a few years ago, he said to me, from what you're saying, it sounds like you don't value your role as a stay-home parent as much as your husband's full-time career. And I was very defensive. I said, no, that's not true. Like, of course, I'm proud of all stay-home parents. And so, it took me a year. It took me a year and a pandemic to really sit with that question and ask myself, like, is it true? How do my actions align with my purpose? Is what I'm doing aligned with what I'm saying? And the truth was, it wasn't. I had to understand how much negativity and judgments I've absorbed from society, and how that unconsciously fed into my perception of myself. And I was wanting to show up today, being very proud of being a stay-home parent, and to speak from this perspective. I'm this is the first time, after my child is almost 2 years old, and this is the first time I can say I'm really proud to be a stay-home parent. I learned to distinguish between a job and a role, and the difference is that, just like many other people, our labor is not being financially compensated for in a capitalist society. And it's very important, I think, to remind ourselves that, like, just because that happens, that doesn't mean that you're not as valuable. But it's so hard to not buy into that, or it's so hard. I feel like it's an everyday work. Every day I wake up and I have to remind myself of that, because I feel like it's literally like the oxygen we breathe, right? When you live in a capitalist society. So value assignment. How do we assign value? How do we become very conscious of our internalized biases? So that was something that I felt like the pandemic gave me a chance of reshaping. And I understand that it comes from a place of privilege, right? Like I'm lucky that my husband kept his job during the pandemic. I'm lucky that the job gave us insurance so I could get mental health support. That is a privilege. But I wish it was a right. I wish it was a right for everybody to get access to mental health support and physical health support. I spent a long time, feeling guilty about having that privilege that other people don't have. And through that, sometimes minimizing my own struggles. And then I came to a point of realization that actually they don't cancel each other out. You can struggle and at the same time have strength and privilege to uplift someone else. It's not zero sum. They can coexist, and we don't have to feel pressured to make sense of it at all. So that also took me a year. It took me a really long time. And it was hard. It was hard to unlearn previous habits. It was hard to unlearn previous behaviors. And the pandemic actually gave me protection. So I don't have a physical illness, but I didn't realize I had a mental health condition until a few months ago. So I was diagnosed with complex PTSD because I had an abusive childhood, but I didn't realize it was abusive. And I was also abused by my abuser in the last few years, but I didn't know it. I didn't have the words. I didn't have the understanding. And finally, everything made sense. I understood, okay, this is the reason why I struggled so badly. This is the reason why I felt like I couldn't be of any help to anybody. I would find myself starting a task, like the most basic task, like reading something or starting a conversation or just trying to get off the couch to do dishes. And I just couldn't do it. Hours would go by and I didn't know what was happening. It didn't make sense. Like, my husband was working from home. I had all this help. the pandemic gave me protection from people who were either abusive to me or, you know, were very intrusive in my life as a parent. Why am I not getting better? So I was very fortunate to have had space, time, and access to resources, right, to figure all these things out. And then I realized, you know, before the pandemic, when I really needed help, I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it because I can't drive. And here in Hawaii, if you can't drive, you can't go anywhere. So I can't drive. I didn't trust anyone with my child. So I would lie to the doctor. I would lie to the nurses about my mental health so that I could get out of the clinic as soon as possible to get home to my child, because I didn't trust that anyone would take care of him. And I stopped going to like counseling. I stopped going to things because people couldn't drive me. I couldn't make it. You know, when I asked, can you do an online option? Can I join like online groups? Like no one was doing online support. So the pandemic realized it is possible. This infrastructure is possible, because when the pandemic happened, everything moved online. And I really felt for people who have always been left behind before the pandemic happened. You know, we're talking about people with people who are disabled, people with autoimmune diseases, right? Like people who typically have accessibility challenges. Where was this infrastructure for them? Because I think for my issues, they feel non-permanent. I feel like, you know, as my child gets older and as I get support, like things might improve for me. But for some people, that's not the case. Where is that, you know, what is the value assignment to their lives? What value are we assigning? We say we care about them, but our actions, I don't think they match up. And so now I find myself in the place of, now that I'm clarifying the value of, you know, my role as a parent, as an artist, what questions do I need to ask? What solutions do I need to be questioning? And how can I be very honest with myself in terms of the struggles I have, and at the same time use my privilege to uplift other people and make sure that the value of their lives is something that we truly care about.
It's of great importance, and not only the things you shared with us, but also the fact that you reevaluated a role that we have been all given as a certainty that we will face one way or another in our lives, but in many cases we don't, and in other cases we are not ready to face this role. Nobody actually prepares us to face this role because nobody knows how to prepare us to become parents. And for me, acknowledging the fact that you felt like sharing your story on a parent's view, it's of great importance, because so many times we believe that we know how to help our children, we know how to help our fellows and friends, but we don't. We actually don't. We are not even willing to let them open to us and allow them to showcase to us how they need us to help them. But what you said also made me want to ask Sebastian, who I want to welcome today in today's meeting, because he's been working around a lot with kids. And I would really love to continue this conversation on the perspective of kids, how difficult it was for the kids, because now that we have entered this kind of engagement, I would really love to hear, in his case, how the kids reacted to this whole idea, before getting back to the fact that being a parent doesn't come with directives. It's a path that you need to evolve upon on your own steps, and nobody has walked that before you, and nobody will walk that in the same way after you. But Sebastian, welcome. Would you like to share with us how your kids reacted to this whole situation?
Yes. Hey guys, first of all, I'm so happy to see you all and miss you. Jasmine, thank you for sharing this amazing process and story. Thank you very, very much for sharing it with us. And yeah, mainly I wanted to say hi to everyone first. So happy to see you again. Yeah, when the pandemic started, I would be back to the first question because I've been doing like many of you. I think you knew we were building. I didn't have time at all to relax, or all the opposite. I was like not sleeping for like a month and building a breathing machine like for, and we had problems, and they a big businessman made some problems for us, very big problems. So it was very intense, and we got into a big problem with with corruption mainly in this country. And regarding to the, so I've been quite anxious, and I'm learning now to stop a little bit. I was in the hospital also because of my stress and not stopping. I was quite, my body reacted because I was not stopping at all and doing lots of stuff, and in a compulsive way, like working. Sometimes it's an addiction also, and you can escape from your emotions and the important questions, yeah, that you need to face. So yeah, I now I'm relaxing a little bit more and taking it slower. But coming back to your question, Mario, your new question, when we started, we were in the first week of the presential classes, so we had just 1 week because it was the first week here of the kids starting. So suddenly we went online, like they came 1 week with the teachers, and suddenly we went full online. And we started to have also kids from all over the world, like in Spanish, but from all Latin America and Spain. And the kids, many of them were like, I think this having the classes and having a creative way and something to do, and it makes parents were like really thankful because they had space to talk and to share with other kids, and they didn't feel alone. At least here in Argentina, classes were like, they never have Zoom classes. It was like maybe in 3 months they had one class like online. So I couldn't believe it. Like what we were doing, like to have once a week a class and have support all the time and stuff, like, I don't know, like even private and public education here was like, they couldn't manage it, and they weren't even having Zoom classes. So kids didn't have any connection with their teachers and kids. And I think that small connection, it was a lot. And especially having a creative, they have to do something. They were like with their hands, with their phone, filming, doing something with their parents, editing and everything. So that helped them a lot. Most of the kids were like, I think the classes were like something really important because they could express themselves, and they could share with other people, and they could see other kids, like basics, you know, like, and many kids didn't have that. And also, and they were really happy because we found out ways of doing the online classes really cool, that they are not just like a Zoom normal class. So it was an experimentation, and kids also knew it. So they also invented things, and they were like, we were all trying to find out a new way of doing this in a way that it's fun and it's creative and it works. But many kids have had problems. Like many parents were like in a very difficult situation. So I gave lots of parents like a full scholarship because they were coming for like 3 or 4 years, and now they couldn't pay it. So I talked with many of them. They say they couldn't continue coming, and I say, I want chairs, like come, like you will keep coming and don't worry about the money. And so I had to do that with many kids. So I talked with many kids that some kids were having like some stress and were having like they were feeling emotions and different kinds of process. So talking with them was like really good. Like many of them needed to talk with somebody and express how they felt, but yeah, I think it was like a special place where they can share and connect with people and express themselves. And many kids were like having more struggle, but it's something that we've been working on with the teachers and myself and other people that are working with me to try to talk with their families. And if a teacher sees that the kid is like shows any kind of symptom that something might be wrong, we try to check with their parents. Sometimes the problem is more their parents and it's not the kids. Sometimes it's more the kids. It's like it's a structure. Sometimes the kid is like having their parents being not so good, so it affects them, and maybe it's not so much about them, but their parents. Sometimes it depends. So we try to talk with parents and their kids and see how can we help. It's not like that we have to do that, but it's something that I like to do. Like it's a filmmaking school for kids, but my purpose is not that they learn filmmaking, but they can find a space and they can have some deep internal questions and processes. So, yeah.
Do you believe that creativity and the way that you engage with kids, allowing them to be participants of what you were preparing alongside your teachers, was a solution for them, a way out of dealing with the pandemic? Because here in Greece, we didn't even have the chance to go on telecommunication before the second wave. So what happened in Greece was that even at the moment that we are speaking now, there are kids that haven't even been able to connect into the main educational system going online. And this was really frustrating. And we also need to face situations in which people were driven out of their houses because of economic problems, and kids didn't even have the basic support. We have seen pictures of kids trying to being part of the educational process when in the store of their parents, or living on community benefits and trying to find a community center in order for them to follow up with education. So did you have any kind of these cases needing to deal with? And what's your opinion on this one?
Sorry, which kind of cases that kids that?
The ones that kids weren't having the economic ability to participate, the ones that you've already discussed, but I'm talking about frustration on behalf of the kids, because although this was a creative process, they were losing part of their engagement with their community, with their friends, with their...
Where like for some kids, they were having like kind of attention disorder, like not explicitly, I think they didn't know, but not only kids, I think me also, like being lots of time with the phone, you know, I think many of us were dealing with lots of emotions, and also in Argentina, the economic crisis is like really, really big, and things are gonna get really, really complicated. We have like now, it's 60% of the kids in Argentina are poor. 60%, it's a lot. It grow like more than 25-30%, I think, something like that. It's like insane, and we don't know, like the government is insane, but we don't know how bad it is. We have like an inflation that is the government is printing a lot of money, so it's like an illusion that things are not exploding, but we are just printing a lot of money. So it's gonna be really complicated. But yeah, I think many kids were like, sometimes they couldn't do the work because they are like, sorry, sometimes in the last few months also they are having lots of online things, and they are a bit tired also, like, of being online. Now it changed this year because they are a bit tired because before they were not having classes online so much. They were only having like homework, but now they are having online classes and they are tired of being online, and sometimes they are they need to be out of the computer. That's what's happening now. Like before, I think it was okay that they needed more virtual connection with human beings, but now it's like even they need connection with human beings, but not so much online sometimes, because they, not only kids, we all are probably a little bit tired of being online and in front of a computer, and we need more face-to-face connections and stuff. So yeah, many kids were like a bit tired. Many kids were like, they loved the workshop, but they couldn't keep coming so much because they were tired of being with the computers or with the phones. And so that's something that happened. I don't know if I answered the question.
Yes, of course. And actually, this is something that brings along what Jasmine said, that we need to reevaluate our role as staying-home parents. For a long time, being a parent wasn't being supported by governmental policies, and people felt like the necessity of working and producing all the time. But during this pandemic, as Jasmine said, we need to reevaluate the role of homestaying full-hour parent and how we can support these people on being the ones that kids can actually turn to when in need. Because in many cases, as in Greece also, we had so many situations that kids weren't even able to deal with their parents in the first place, because I will call upon what Jasmine said. People were working 24/7. Kids was just an engagement in the late hours or late in the evening, because a lot of kids were staying with grandparents, which actually brings me to the next question to whomever feels like answering. Have you felt like your role has changed in terms of you becoming the adult and the parent, in terms of our elders and our parents and the ones that actually are older than us?
Yeah, if I may, if I can share.
Yes, James, please.
Hi, everyone. So in my case, actually, it's very interesting that you brought that up, because that's what I really wanted to share also. How the roles are being reversed right now, how the children are actually being the adults and the parents are being the kids, and how the role reversal basically, and not just in terms of, like, for example, there's so many cases. Like in my case, for example, they read something online like, oh, there's this new medicine I should try. It's called ivermectin. It's gonna help. It helps cure COVID. Maybe you should take it. You should take it. Something like that, you know. And obviously, you ask them, do you have enough did you read the whole article? Do you have enough sources to read up on this? And they're like, no, my friends told me it works, so it should work. So that's one, right? That's another case. On another thing is, for example, due to the lockdown and everything, people have a limited time to go out. And obviously, if your parents are a little bit older, they wouldn't have a chance to go out. So you'd have to go out and buy the necessary stuff like groceries or like their medicines. And you have to constantly remind them about the schedule. Like, okay, you have to take your medicine here. And they're like, but I don't want to take my medicine. I feel fine, stuff like that. So you know, as a kid, you're like taking the vitamins, like, I don't want to do it, but then you're forced by the parents. Now it's the other way around. It's quite funny if you think about it, but it's the reality of life. And also, I think the big change, I think, for everyone, and I'm not sure if this applies to everyone, is how everyone is a little bit forced to act more maturely. And because of that, arguments tend to happen more often. Having different ideals from your parents, having different ideals from your friends, definitely. But if you're all living in the same house and you guys don't agree, it's much more difficult to have that you know, solid ground where you can compromise, because you can't just, I'm going, like, whenever you have an argument, you can't just leave them because you're still in the same room, you know. So you're being forced to act more maturely and really talk about it and have the chance to not run away from it, you know. You're forced to really have that sensibility and that time to focus and really discuss. And I think that's what a lot of the big changes are, especially from the parent and the child perspective. Because the children are not just children anymore. The children are becoming people who are sort of now people are being treated equal. Like, you know, it's not that I raised you up and you have to listen to me. It's not that way anymore. You know, there's that level of maturity and understanding that right now we're all in this together, even if we're all coming from different um stages in life. If you're a parent, if you're a child, you have to understand that although there is a certain privilege, I guess, definitely, like wherever you are, for example, if you have a job or something like that, you have that privilege. You can have like certain standards on what to say and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everyone has a role and everyone has a vital part and important thing that they can do. And I think we need to remember that, you know, everyone has a say. So yeah, I think that's the big change in my personal experience as a child who became a parent in his own way to his parents. So yeah.
Really, and indeed, it's beautiful to describe the fact that the exchange of roles in terms of family affairs has led us all to become a little bit more adults than we used to be. Furthermore, to this point, I would like to add the fact that we also need to face the fact that in many cases, as in Greece, people of older age were left behind. And what I mean by that is that in the early days of the first lockdown, but also during the second lockdown in the early beginning back in September of 2020, we felt like nobody was caring for the people being institutionalized or the people living in elder houses, which actually caused me an inner frustration of not knowing how to deal even with my own parents, because I know my father, it's over energetic. My mother has been sick through the years, and trying to cope with those people in the terms of, I thought they were safe, but they weren't. I thought they were having each other, but they didn't, because everybody was dealing with this in their own means and ways, which actually changed my whole idea about how we treat the members of our society, either if they are part of our family or not. Another thing to discuss, and this is an open question to you all, are there any attitudes you used to have and now you change them? Do you believe that new habits have come to your life because of the pandemic? Yeah, Lazarus.
Yes.
Or Rafef, whomever feels like.
Okay. It's always me or Lazarus.
Afef, thank you for this assist. It's a sports term, but I would like to address a small question here, because I feel that there is a lot of resourceful impact on your behalf, meaning that I try to imagine how the next generation, actually your own children, are going to react after 10 or 15 years from now, meaning that what memories or experiences are they gonna carry after this moment that we are here? For example, it's the year 2021. So I'm questioning either regards to the children of Sebastian in Argentina, or the parents that we have here in our beautiful fellowship. What are the benefits, the mental benefits that those children are carrying in order to develop an mental immune system for the next big thing? Because every 10 years we have either disease, either war, we have certainly a big event. So my question is, do you think that all this situation have managed to feed those children with strong experiences in order to become the next, I'm not going to say leaders, but I'm going to say active citizens and good friends? This is the question. I don't know if it was a bit complicated, but
I believe it's clear how the kids will develop after this experience, in which way they will develop. The question is open for everyone who feels like answering, but we will take it on a fifth. Please, take the stand. It's yours.
Yes, I raised my hand. I just want, I think I can share my part of experience as not a parent, as an aunt, granddaughter, from another point of view. So first of all, I would like to salute any parents who's dealing with his child, because that's an enormous task to do. It's not easy. The children are like white paper that you'll have to write. Whatever you will write, it will affect them in their long life. So it was not very easy to raise a kid, or even to give your morals or your principle will be like, oh, maybe 20 years from now, this will be helpful for him. Maybe 20 years from now, this will not be helpful for him. Am I going to give him a good advice that will help him? Or how can I deal with him in this pandemic? So as for me, for my own experience, I have a nephew and a niece, and everyone around me knows that I'm not a very fan of kids. Okay, I like them around, but I'm not very fan of them. But I think to go back to Jasmine, I think that some family member inside the house with them would be very helpful. For example, to my sister, we were all around her. So when she feels suffocated with her kids and everything, we took them from her and we tried to engage them in some kind of place, because technology was not allowed in our house for kids for 5 or 6 years old, because that's not a healthy way. So we gave them phones for like 50 minutes and that's it. So how she will deal with them like 24 hours, used to see them like 12 hours at night. They go to the school and then go back home. So it's not easy to have kids 24 hours. So it was our part to help them, to create them some kind of place, to choose what kind of movies they can engage and watch, the books they can read. And the same question every time: when will this end? I want to see my friends. I want to go out. Before we as kids, we could play at the streets. It was safer. Now we could not even let them in the front house. Like, we were so afraid they will catch the virus or they will be kidnapped or anything. So we left them inside with them. And it was not easy because you gave them your lifestyle. So for my niece is very close to me. So she do everything I do. And that's not helpful, because I know life is hard. And I know that someday she's gonna come back to me and, why did you do this? And let me do it too. But going back to Lazarus' question, what I discovered in this pandemic, living with the kids, they are mentally stronger than us. They are a strong person. They're physically strong, not physically, but mentally they're stronger than us. It fascinates me how they can understand you. If you give them simple words, they can take it in and they will think about it, and they give you questions and they discuss with you, and they will develop that kind of thought, and they will cope with it, and they will live with it every day. For example, for my nephew, who was like against anything to be studied online, it's like you give him anything else except studying online. It took us a lot to make him understand that was for his benefit. For the first time, it was super cute to watch him struggling with an online study and everything. But deep down, it was some kind of sad, because he has to cope with something he has nothing to do with. And it was not very easy, but he developed and he understand and he took it very well. And he started to open his own online studies, and he started to open, even sometimes he wants to create his YouTube channel to show the people that he's cooking, that he's doing something, he's playing with cats. So kids actually are better human beings than us, for my opinion. They can actually help you as a person. They can help you as a person to like take a deep breath and start over again. If he can do it 5 or 6 years old, I can do it 20 years or 30% or 30 years old person. So it was not easy. And for the elders, the best part in Arabic, living in Arabic words, it's like we don't put like our grandmother and grandfather in a facility. They always live with us, either with us, either with them children, either with the granddaughters. But the most most said something to say is my grandmother is suffering from Alzheimer's, and the doctor always say someone needs to talk to her, someone needs to be with her. You have to visit her all the time. And with the pandemic, no one have the chance to visit her, except for my uncle and his family. They started living with them, so they went up with them and started living with them, so she can have someone to talk to during the pandemic. So we all suffered from cutting ties with our family, except for the phone call, and it was not easy, and it will not be easy. But we have to cope in one way or another, because life moves on and no one stops for you, and life will never stop for you. So we have to cope. Even my grandmother and grandfather, if you talk them on the phone, they'll be like, yes, we understand, it's COVID and you're worried about us, so it's okay. You do not have to come. You can stay there, but you cannot help but worrying for them, going outside or even say hi to a neighbor and they will catch the virus. And it was not easy. It was not easy for us or for the kids who used to play there every weekend. And my grandmother's house was so big they can play in it. So that's what pandemic has affected our life like this, and the kids. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Finally, I would kindly ask Ms. Esenam to take the stand on this question, because she's dealing with a lot of young women at the moment trying to make up for their own paths in living, and also she's a mother of 2. So, Ms. Esenam, would you like to share your experience on how you believe that the pandemic probably have affected both parenting and childhood, and even what does this mean for a woman not being able to establish a healthy relationship between the obligations of her work with the obligations of being a full-time mother, a full-time parent?
Okay, whoosh, parenting kids and my kind of culture. I think I share the same belief system so far as the way our society is arranged with AFEV. I equally live in a very communal society. And before the pandemic, it was very easy to easily call on any family member to say, hey, can you please help me babysit my children? I need to do A, B, C, D, and Z. And they're so glad to help. So it tells you the sort of social capital that was available to me. Then came COVID, and then we were forced to homes. Social distancing was supposed to be adhered to. And all of a sudden, we weren't allowed to even move from one locality to the other without being stopped by the police or the military. You need to give a valid reason why you are moving from one suburb to the other suburb in the infection rate. There it hits me that talk about the issue of individuality. It hits me straight in the face. I was stuck with my kids 24 hours. They were so bored, sick. They wanted to do more. We couldn't go out to the amusement park as they used to do, or the nature walk park as we call it. The canopy walks and hanging around the bungee jumps and all that. Rest that what I had always have and probably really didn't think twice about it. One major global would distract all my cultural arrangements or societal arrangements to the practical level. There you are as a parent, you are stuck with your kids, family members can lend you the helping hand, family members can come visit you up. You can't even go dropping them off in anybody's home, you are stuck. And we needed to restructure our entire lives. So having been working with other female or women who are equally, most of them mothers, the same storyline runs for all of us. And even when lockdowns were lifted up, with a little, we weren't ready to mingle. And we weren't also very comfortable dropping off our kids to other family members as we used to do and come back and pick them up after your day's work. So you realize, as much as lockdown started easing up, we were still locked and caged in our own predicaments. Schools weren't opening, school was online. You basically wouldn't have a life. We never had a life, even after the lockdown started easing up. And we came back to ask ourselves, to a stock taking, as in, is this how was going to change overnight at the snap of a finger, at a snap of a pandemic? Is this how our cultural arrangement or social arrangement, is this how it's going to stay? Would we be able to go back to the norms? Would I be able to see my family, extended family members and friends as my social capital? Because at this point, I think we've all learned some lessons with the COVID pandemic. We realized at the end of the day, you're accountable to yourself. You needed to exist and live first before all others. And it brings me back to that same question. My cultural settings, is the cultural arrangements in my kind of society, is it going to change forever? Has there been a dent on our arrangements as a group of people? Would we ever go back to what it was? Or has it started a revolution of individuality in my kind of society? It's a bit scary, yes. And I still can't have the answers forthright. Has my communal society suddenly woke up to an individualistic society? And I'm still looking for answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esenam, for your intervention. So, ladies and gentlemen, we reached the point where we should take a break to stretch a little bit, and we will be back in 5 minutes' time. So our technical support, Angelina, will go online and interrupt the live streaming for about 10 minutes. So please feel free to get off your chair, stretch a little bit, get your waters, or smoke something, and we will be right back after those 10 minutes with the discussions on how you believe societies will change through the outbreak experience, which will be hosted from Afef and Lazarus. So
just a second before everyone leaves, I would like to ask something. Is everyone going to be here after the 10 minutes break, or someone has to go leave? Because I would like to take a print screen of all of us here, just for the sake of memory. Yes.
Go do it while everyone's still smiling.
Yes,
I want to sing a song.
if you don't want to smile and you want to pretend that you are sad because you are seeing us, you can do it, but I don't think that this is the case. Also, Sebastian, you can also take your professional print screen because you are the guy that has the best camera resolution here. Okay. Okay, big smiles in order to motivate everyone else for the next meeting, because I have this kind of faith that this is the beginning of something beautiful for the next month, for the next 2 months. I believe it's going to happen again. So give us a huge smile, Sebastian, do your magic things, and we go to break after it. Daxi.
Yo, Lazarus.
Cool. Yo.
Yo.
All right, cool.
Hey, in the break, I want to sing a song. So you
Okay,
can
that's
stay
perfect.
with the audio on.
That's perfect. You can
Okay.
do that.
Okay, okay.
You can play the guitar if you want.
All right, I'm gonna stay here for the
Sorry?
song. So everyone, I'm gonna stay here for the song. Come on, ring it.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, it's I don't know. I'm more in the feeling zone today, but it's so good to see you and hear you all. I'm here in the little forest. I was picking some seeds, listening to you, and
Is the YouTube copy going to be like online? Like, I mean, is
I'm
it
so
gonna be-
happy to man.
Maybe watch it again.
This is great to see Esenam, Kata, and Jasmine, Sherry, Afef. This is a really, really good present. Paulina from Paris with his hat. Sebastian working.
It's the first time I found
I feel
filters.
Sebastian working.
It's been a year of Zoom, and it's first time I understand how to use the filters, and it's a nice chat.
Nice, nice.
Oh gosh.
Nice. So
Do you have this hat
everybody-
in other
We
colors
should
too?
make a collective photo with hats.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are back up online. So, I would like to once again thank everybody that it's been watching this live discussion that today has been hosted by the Fellowship of Participants of the Better Together Challenge 2019, which has been conducted in Korea under the auspice of the World Culture Open Organization. And we are moving on to the next segment of this open discussion, and I will give the stand to Afef straight away to introduce the next thematic that we will be discussing. Afef, the stand, it's yours.
Yes, thank you, Mario. So the first time I read about this thematic, I was like, this is fascinating, because honestly, I don't remember our life before Corona. I don't even remember how it was, and it's still like when I see someone in the street or in the TV, they like kissing and hugging. I was like, wow, man, this is wild. Who's kissing and hugging now? It's Corona time. So for me, I think that the virus reoriented our relation to the outside world forever. Like for our relation with our government has changed. Our relation with the social life has changed. Scientific way has changed. So I think no, I'm not a sociologist. I'm not a human. I'm not a historian. I'm just a humanitarian. I'm just a person who can observe. So anything I'm gonna say now, it's only my opinion. So I think that after Corona ends, please God, let it be this year. So I think after Corona ends, so many things will be changed. The world map will be changing on economic level, on scientific level, on social level. For example, for economic level, I think we all remember the 9/11 that happens in the world before, and how the world changing afterwards. No one before 9/11 had an idea about the terrorism, etc., etc. So every government has bought or has stocked so many heavy machines and guns and everything, preparing for something coming like war or terrorism. But now you cannot actually shoot the virus. So what will you do? You will actually shift your focus from anything has related to guns and wars and invest in healthcare, because finally the science wins. Before, like, people were like calling for investor, please invest in researchers, please invest in like in finding cure for chronic illness. It was okay, people are investing, but they are not like having 100% attention on the topic. For example, for like cancer and AIDS, and even the regular flu, they take like more 1 million person a year death, and no one has been impacted with that. Only if you have a relative, a friend, or lover, or someone who has been sick, but no one actually like on this worldwide attention have like an idea. Okay, it's like cancer. Okay, it's difficult. There is no cure. That's it. But now everyone is looking for cure for corona. Everyone is looking for vaccination for corona, because they know this thing has affected their life on the long term. So I think that after the corona, many people will have much more interest in science and in cure and in a vaccination. For example, I think I read before the corona some articles in USA. I'm not like talking about all of them, but some of the Americans, according to the article, you can find it on BuzzFeed, that so many parents are choosing to not vaccinate their children for normal vaccination, for regular vaccination. They have this idea, no, their immune system has to fight on its own. So he needs to create the cure for any other sickness coming to their child. I believe that after corona, everyone is going to vaccinate his child. He's gonna give him the proper vaccination, all his age stages. Here in Tunisia, and I'm proud to say that here we vaccinate our kids, all the vaccination, even the one that the doctor recommended, but it's not necessary, we vaccinate. We say protection is better than regret later. So I think scientifically level, everyone is going to shift their focus on the science more than anything else, and on the healthcare system more than anything else. So socially speaking, I think after the quarantine and people are being bored, there will be so many children in this world, even planned pregnancy, unplanned pregnancy. And I think it's according to the UNICEF, how can you say it in English? I don't know UNICEF in English. They say that there will be 7 million new births after the corona. So 7 million new human beings after the corona. Those kind of population, it's gonna need a social structure, money. They're gonna need an economic level. But the problem that the governments after the corona, they'll be having a big problem of the jobs. There will be some business who are not existing there anymore. There will be middle class will be pushed up sharply to poor class, because especially in Asia and Africa, and I heard Sebastian talking about Argentina, they have like 60% are poor now. So imagine after the corona, those 60% will be added by the middle class who's gonna be poor. So this is gonna be so heavy on the government, and it's gonna have like an impact on any economic of any country. And I think they'll shift the attention of government from other like important subjects, but for now are not very important, like the climate. So the climate subject will be like pushed aside until the best solution for the social strata and for the economic or economically. Last and least, and this is speaking from my own experience, the family term. I have this friend that she has a teenager daughter. She's divorced and she has a teenager daughter that before the corona, they were not very close together. So after in the quarantine time, because one of her colleagues has been infected with corona, her boss asked her to go back home early. So she went early and she found her daughter like cutting her all of her hair. She cut all of her hair and she wrote a suicidal note that she's gonna suicide because she can't take it anymore, and she cannot take her life anymore, because she was like some kind of introvert before the corona. She was always quiet and calm kid, so we could not predict what she was gonna do. But because of corona and because of her mother going back early to the house because of the corona, the girl has been saved. And after that, because of the quarantine, she got closer with her mother, and now she's getting better, and she have a mental assistant, and she have a psychiatrist, and she's now the first on her class. But so I think after the corona, those family relationship will be much more closer together, and people can save each other life, either physically, either mentally. So to finish this, I think the rules that we lived by before corona or now will not be applied after this. So thank you, everyone. And I think we go back to Lazarus because he wants to talk on this topic too. Laz?
Well, this is a huge topic for me because I see, of course, it's my personal opinion, but I see the world has already changed. This is a fact. And I don't know if we're talking about the great resets, as they call it, but still we haven't seen the real effects of this situation which caused by the coronavirus, because the fundamentals of the society, the fundamentals of the environment before the coronavirus were at stake. So this was the perfect chance in order to reevaluate our societal changes, our cultural behavior, our development in technology. But among these fields, I believe that we are forgetting the most important thing, because we know how to plug in a computer and download a perfect program, but at the end of the day, we may have forgotten how to communicate with a reason and in depth to each other. Sometimes, our ego comes over the society, which in my opinion, it's something natural, but it's not so helpful in order for the communities and the societies to be involved. Just a second. Further than that, I also realized something else. I realized that all the societal and the cultural vulnerabilities and the system weaknesses were exposed, meaning that we may have all the money in the world, but still we're not capable of how to deal with it. Before we heard Shabbat talking about inflation in Argentina. When the governments have the power to print money, unlimited money, we know that those effects will cause eventually an economic crisis. But on the other hand, personally, I've been into another sector, which is the blockchain sector, and I discovered a decentralized way of exchanging not only information, but exchanging also value. So for me, my main question is, are we going to be divided into the high elites, and the other side would be the low class and the middle class, which will develop tools in order to exchange and to interact themselves because they created another system? Because the main question is, okay, we don't like the system. How we can fix the system? Where the solution is not to fix a broken system. The solution, in my opinion, is to create another system, and this system has to be created by the community and not by the economic needs. And I guess this somehow also create a bridge between what Esenam was talking before regarding how her society and her community is evolving. So even if we manage to reach to a point of no return, which I think we are now to this point of no return, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have to use the wheel in a different way. This is my thought regarding this huge topic, and I could speak for hours regarding this, because I know that artificial intelligence is evolving. We're sending missiles to the Mars. We're curing in human psychology, because I don't care if I have $1 million and I'm suffering from the depression. I cannot eat those dollars and be cured. But on the other hand, if I have two good friends that could provide me an active listening or give me a hug, this is the best thing that can happen to me personally.
Yes,
I see
thank
some
you.
heads rolling, so I would like to.
Yes, Lazarus, thank you for sharing your opinion. And then saying, okay, thank you. So we
Pleasure.
go to Paulina. I heard that Paulina, she has a point of view here. She wants to share. Paulina.
Yes. So actually, I wanted to comment on your ideas about the renaissance of science and all that stuff. I'm actually, I think, kind of like it's a wishful thinking, because with this pandemic, I was actually quite surprised to see how much people do not rely on science and on scientific evidence. Yes, of course, science is flawed in many ways, and not it's always the complete truth. But in case of viruses, I think beyond doubt, beyond reasonable doubt, it's very clear what's going on, and with the vaccination of the stuff. But it's a huge backlash all across the world towards science, towards scientific reason. And that creates actually a lot of conflict within the society. In Russia, more than half of population do not believe in COVID. So, and it's quite serious, given the fact that already 500,000 people died in Russia, right? It's a whole huge city. So when I've seen this anti-vaccination movement actually getting a momentum, being really strong, and this is a huge risk towards global health everywhere. Yes, because we are not absolutely not separated, and viruses, they don't know borders, don't need applied visa to enter other countries. And for me, it's a big question, actually, where as humanity we will go with scientific methods from that point, given the fact that we are already receiving so much backlash. And from my talks to people, anti-vaxxers, I'm already vaccinated, and people who are like really anti-COVID, anti-maskers and all that stuff, they come in bunch. Yes, they're not separated. You always, if you're anti-mask, you're anti-COVID, anti-vaccine, and anti-everything. So it's coming in buckets. It's like when you're environmentalist, you're feminist, and so everything, all of that comes in buckets. So for me, it's really big questions on how we can actually unite that back. If it's possible, what to do with all that anti-scientific, anti-consensus method. So I'm not as optimistic as you, Afif. So, and I'm actually quite worried what the global impact of this anti-blah blah blah movements will have on science as well. But on a positive note, from what I read, and I have a lot of free time, I read a lot. There will be a really good thing for all other types of vaccinations and towards different kind of diseases that can be helped by chemicals, or how they're called, right, by vaccination. So the fact that they invented this mRNA vaccine, which is Moderna and Pfizer, is kind of a huge scientific breakthrough, and will help in many other spheres developing different sorts of mechanistic solutions for different kind of viral diseases. And it's not spoken a lot about. It's not interesting, crazy, stuff. It's like for the boring scientists. But from what I understood, from what I was reading, it's going to really change for better a lot of different spheres. And it's actually also for me, also something that we're not talking about because it's positive and humans like to talk more about negative. It's how scientists all across the world, it's actually one of the most better together projects ever happened, I think, of how fast scientists shared information about the sequential of the virus, all this mechanic stuff, and how the virus is spreading, and different versions and stuff, and how they were sharing all the information. Also very borderless, and how they were able to communicate with each other, unite with each other, and overcome bureaucratic issues is unbelievable. Given the fact how hard it usually is for people across borders to unite toward the common goal. So that's a good.
So Paulina, I have a just small question. So you think life in Russia will go back to normal after?
Oh, it's already, I'm for sure, you know, when you posted these questions of how like societies will change and stuff, nothing will change in Russia. It's absolutely normal as it was before. So there are people are dying. Yes, I worked for Greenpeace last year. 2 of my colleagues, quite young guys, sadly died through COVID. But it's still cases that are separated from a common consciousness. So life goes as normal in Russia. So, which is for me is absolutely stunningly sad, I would say. So there won't be any changes of social norms. Nothing will change on a dramatic level. Some slow changes, like people get more matched with the online formats of work, of education. But I don't think it's some processes that will have some real impact on our way of life. So for me, the concern is about people who are anti-COVID vaccination, because there's a lot of stuff to reflect about, because it really, I think, creates a lot of inner conflict in society, because some people lost their loved ones to COVID, a lot of people, and there are still a lot of people who are in complete denial. So I think that will have some impact on the way we live in Russia.
Thank you, Paulina, for sharing. Thank you so much. I would like to go back to Esenam, because in the topic before this, she asked a question. She said that, will we ever be going back to live normally? So I would like to see if Esenam, she can answer this question for herself. Hi, Esenam. Esenam.
My microphone is on.
Yes, I can hear you. You asked the question, you can answer it if you have an answer.
If our society is going to go back to how it used to be before COVID came knocking on our doors, or to,
especially in Ghana,
to normalcy. So over here in Ghana, our problems came in a cocktail factor. Here we had poverty issues, issues. For many of the population, we were living from hand to mouth, with no saving culture or what so kind. Even if we had saved, we saved for the short term, and especially with no working social welfare program. So we realized COVID came in to magnify our already existing issues. The bread seller who would sell her bread in traffic on the streets woke up one day and realized there was no traffic in town for her to even sell her bread. Everything came to a halt because of lockdown. And this is the bread seller who lives from hand to mouth. She lives based on the profit she makes hawking her bread by the roadside or in the neighborhood. And then everything came to a standstill. The best the social services could provide for her was a pack of cooked meal, 1 pack of cooked meal for her and probably her children. depending on how many they were in a household, which is basically not enough. I mean, it's just a drop in the ocean. And now that we have lived through COVID, we've lived through the lockdown, and life is easing up a bit for us. We're still not getting to the point of how do we repackage our life now and for the future. Because as our problems haven't been solved, our problems are still with us. We couldn't even started thinking of how best we could solve our issues way before COVID took a world touring visa for the globe. So we're still at that limbo. Our priorities still haven't been set right. Individually, we still want to live by the moment because that is what we have. No workable solution so far as rearranging our social interactions, be it economically, be it culturally. Think of it. We can't even start thinking of solutions at this point. We're still thinking of how to live. So that is how diverse the story is when you take each part of the globe. For us, it's a cocktail of issues we are dealing with way before COVID came in. And we're still picking up the pieces of our previous issues and trying to merge it with what COVID had come to add to it and see our way forward. And if you ask me, we still want to tackle the issues day by day as they come. Socially, we are losing it. Culturally, we've been distracted. Economically, we're trying to survive in an already fragile economy, which is picking up the pieces gradually to make something better out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Esenam. Thank you for sharing this one. I would like to ask everyone if they have an answer for this one. It's not only about how COVID will change the society in general. It can be your life, your small community. How will be changing after the virus? What do you think that something that you will miss more during the COVID? You will more, or something that you think that it will go and you'll go back, never go back like the same before. I'd like to have your point of view. If you have something to share on this topic, please tell me.
I can share. I mean, about what I feel for at least my country. Yeah. I will share the good side of it first. So when we went into lockdown, it was at first for 1 month. And then when we extend, and that was, then the children couldn't attend school. So there was no school, everybody stayed at home. And when we went into the second month, the government then said that, okay, now every child needs to do home-based learning through digital learning. And that was when the huge, they call it digital divide here, was so apparent. Children did not have laptops at home, or one laptop was being shared among 4 or 5 children, which was impossible because they have their lessons at the same time. And that, I think, really drove the communities. Like we had communities that like really raised money or like to collect, secondhand laptop and repair and send them to families, like many laptops, although of course they couldn't cover every child. But because of that, I think 1 year down the road, the government here has announced that for secondary school students, everyone will have a personal laptop. And that was the plan in 2028, sorry. So they could actually push the plan ahead to 2021, which is this year. So they managed to push 7 years ahead in the pandemic. I think that's the good news. The not so good news is, in my opinion, the invisible will continue to remain invisible. So for my group, we have volunteered with the adult disability homes or a particular destitute home. So the adults there have no next of kin, no family members to visit them, and they have disabilities such that they cannot live independently by themselves, and they are in the destitute home. Before the pandemic, not many people knew of this home. Only volunteers who volunteer at this home or are in the social service sectors would know of it. And that was why I started to bring my group of volunteers in. During the COVID pandemic till now, which is more than a year, we have not been able to step inside the home. We have not been able to bring them for outings. And I was very affected 6 months into it last year. I attended, meetings with our members of parliament. I cried when I spoke about the elderly being institutionalized and no one being able to visit them because they have no next of kin, and we are just, considered volunteers, and they won't allow anyone in. But nothing was really done about it. I mean, we continued our Zoom sessions and until now, but I wonder how, I will still continue, but I always wonder if I do not continue this, will they just fade away in the memories of people? Because it's out of sight, out of mind, and we are not related by blood. They are not our relatives. Another group of people are, for example, the children with special needs here. When all the children here were mandated home-based learning, there were some in the special needs school that the teachers just could not come up with any home-based learning lessons for them because it was to them not possible and it was not mandated. It was only mandated for the mainstream schools here. So, the previous news is actually for mainstream schools as well, the personal laptop that is given. So again, this is what I feel like, the invisible will still remain invisible. Unfortunately, even after the pandemic. I've been reading news because it's a year now. They actually have articles like, okay, after 1 year, like what happens? And there is no, no mention of people living in these institutions. One minority group has come up a lot because we had a lot of shortcomings with the migrant worker community here. We have more than 1 million migrant workers, and there was a huge outbreak in the dormitories here, which were packed full of them, and it was just a huge mess with many of them infected, and hence also the country going on lockdown, and they are still kind of in a lockdown. Like they do have some time to go out, but it's very restricted. I think things may get a bit better because there are some news reports that because of this whole pandemic, the standards of operating these worker dormitories were exposed. The government now kind of knows who were the dirty players in the industry, and they are trying to, make it better, make living conditions better. But I honestly don't know how far that will go in our society.
Yes, thank you for sharing. And I think I know that Singapore is a very strong country on economic level, and it proved herself among the world. So I think that the changes will be normally socially in your community more than economically in Singapore, right? So I think that economically, so everyone is gonna have a laptop next year. So I want to be Singaporean. Thank you so much. Can I have a laptop? I can have one. I can be Singapore for now. Thank you, Sherry, for sharing. I would love to have another opinion. If you would love to, yes, Mario, please.
On my behalf, what I wanted to point out was not only the fact that we are reaching into a point where shape-shifting will take place in terms of societal interactivity. And what I want to discuss with everybody, and especially in terms of societal interactivity, what I came to realize is the fact that during the pandemic, we all were stuck behind a computer, and that led a lot of people to dive into politics, to dive into societal issues, to dive into researches, to dive into academic knowledge, to dive into movies, art, online exhibitions, things they didn't relate before, or they thought they didn't have the time to relate with before. So for me, a huge issue that we need to discuss is how we can transform our societal interactivity in order to include all these aspects that we usually leave behind in terms of being more proactive and more productive at the same time. Just to give you an example, I realized that in terms of me being part of society with pointing the finger to other people on what they are doing, I turned into myself and I realized that what I need to express is an opinion of my own and not just going here and there supporting people in whatever they said. And another thing was the fact that I had the time, unwillingly, but what we can do, I had the time to go around and dive deep into different creative industry products from around the globe, which for me it's of great importance, and it had helped me a lot to develop our company. So for me, a societal change that I'm already seeing out there has to do with the interactivity of different cultures. Just to give you an example, I know for sure that my closest of colleagues came to realize that they have never seen an online art photography exhibition, or they had never seen an online concert, or they had never had the chance to go to theater because they thought they were enforced to work 24/7. Or in many cases, they tried to balance between parenting and working at the same time, without leaving space for their personal development and to achieve their own cultural targets, if we can say that these are supposed to be targets. And another issue has to do a lot with the fact on the usage of this technology, because although many societies were able and more benefited on the coronavirus situation, which means the Western societies and the high-value economies were already related to technology. But what happened to all those people that actually weren't able to access a computer? We have so many cases. We discussed Argentina, probably Rock can share his point of view from Colombia, and Esenam gave us her point of view from Ghana. And here in Greece, it's actually the same as Seri discussed. Only like a month ago, it was decided upon the government that they will deliver a computer, a personal computer to each kid in order for these kids to be connected to the internet. But my problem lies with the fact, what are we doing to share with communities that are not benefited on an economical level? And how can we support these communities to keep up with us and cope with the fact that in less than a couple of years, half the population of Earth became more technologically aware, and half of the population of Earth, and maybe even more than half of the population of Earth, has been left blindfolded in terms of not being able to access the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, there goes a huge problem on societal reconstruction.
Okay. Thank you, Mario. Thank you for sharing your point of view. I think for my opinion, that how can we help this kind of community? It cannot be helped only by us. It has to be like how we have the government help before to help us help this kind of communities. Like, for example, in Tunisia, we cannot, for our association to help provide the kids, all of them, a laptop. But if the government give us the money, like a little bit of money, we can create some kind of centers in the club, in the association, where they came from home in social distance working. They can have each one of them with a kind of computer, but we cannot actually cover all Tunisia. So we have to work from other associations outside of Tunisia, the capital, and other some kind of places. That's why we, the social worker or the social humanitarian, have a huge role in this kind of situation, especially after Corona. It's going to be hard and big and extreme, but we need to face it. So the next generation will not go through what we had gone through. Thank you so much, Mario, for that. So anyone else?
I thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Anyone else have an answer for Mario and another opinion or something to share, or what we missed most about our life before and after COVID? What do you think that you will miss in the COVID after finishing this kind of pandemic? I think I cannot. Laz, you want to speak?
No, but I saw Sherry was raising a hand, or no? No. Rock, are you playing with a phone, or would you like to share something? Because I would love to hear something from you too. Because
Hello,
I can speak
hello.
forever if you left me. Okay. All right. Go ahead, my friend.
That I'm not too much in the mind dimension today. I'm more like feeling, and I'm making a little fire here. Just, I don't know, just feeling, doing stuff and going out and bring you to tour a little bit and see the trees and the sky. Bring a song, but I don't know what's the question, but I want to talk about what I feel, you know, not too much into the structure today. Sorry.
Yes.
I am, what I'm doing now is School of Urban Agriculture, and it's giving me a lot of strength and confidence in a way that people need it, you know. We used to have our garden man that came and go out. Now they can't come, and now we're kind of on Rappi and Uber, or I don't know, they're cooking, or I just received in my phone. It's like you don't need to cook, call Rappi. It's like crazy, you know. And the energy of cooking is so important, bringing people together in the family. The first pandemic, the first stage last year, I was more in the, I don't know, stay safe, in the kind of survival mode, you know, kind of what I went to the supermarket with this gas mask and used the gloves, and then sometimes I see people not using gloves. I took my gloves and I was like, oh, people are not using gloves in my life, you know, the things that are important to me. And it was also a trip like 10 years forward, 10 years back. I went to my childhood. It's too much stuff. But this year I feel more strength, and I'm trying to put energy on it. It's not easy. I've been doing my learning on doing kits. So I'm doing my class online. So I'm trying to put kits. I bring kits, I send kits to them so they can do the workshops. And what I want to share is that reality is coming a little bit digital. We're going to the era digital very, very quick, but the center is the people, you know, and the center is to take care of the experience through the screen, you know. So that's one of our tasks as teachers or as host of these meetings. So that's how I'm feeling it now, to how to create an amazing experience through the screen, and understanding that we're living in a 3-dimension. I call it 3-dimension. I have my dimension that inside my home, all right, is a dimension. Through the screen is another dimension, and outside my home is another dimension. It's crazy, you know. We are kind of 3 people now. It's and inside of you, like my micro dimension, it's also, yes, multidimensional, Lazarus. It's funny to see it, like it's so clear. It's happening. It's crazy. It's sometimes I go out and say, oh, where my mask is. Before it was, where's my key? Where's my phone? Where's my mask? You know. And it's this time of healing, very, 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 very strong medicine to stay, you know, stay and to be open to a bird, you know. Before we saw the bird and it's bird and plop and yes, the bird's blah blah. Now it's the bird, you know, and he's singing, and he's kind of singing to me or not. It's kind of what, and yeah, I call this time kind of the night of the soul we're living. Maybe I don't know. Maybe some of you are more in the future or in this way, but for me, it's how I feel it. And I feel like it's like the ending of something. I talked with my sister the other day. We went to walk because we walk a lot now. We like to walk. It's like we're walkers. And we went to walk and talk, and she told me like, I was reading this book about the end of the Homo sapiens. And I say, what is that of the end of the Homo sapiens? Yes, it's like kind of it's over, you know. But so it's the end of the Homo sapiens. Blah, blah, blah. What's gonna happen next? What's emerging from all this stuff, you know? And when crises come, innovation, creativity is happening, you know. It's natural. And she told me about this kind of homoluminescence, and you can find many new age words for it. I don't know, but I think we're kind of in the birth of the new man, you know. And some I'm still back with this. We are still with a huge weight, you know, and it's kind of we're kind of giving up and understanding what's the true essence of life and the true essence of family, and understanding how it's important to create community online, territorially, you know. And I love you guys. That's
Thank
what
you
I
so
want to
much.
share. Yoo-hoo!
Thank
Love you back.
Yeah.
Love you back,
my
Rock.
friend.
This is wonderful, beautiful.
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to share. I want to share my seeds here. Here are my seeds and clean it. This is a seed from a tree that is called peumo. It's a peumo, all right. And this is red. And I don't know if you see me. I was smelling it because it has a real smell. So I put the nail on it, and I smell it, and it's like.
I think we're losing you, Rocky. I think we have a good connection.
It's true.
You know?
I think we have a problem, internet problem.
Yes, I like on the trees, or I was going to plant.
It has a small delay, although he has finished this sentence.
But it's lovely. Like how
yes, it is.
He loves the trees.
Okay.
Yes.
We have to exchange some traditional
Wi-Fi.
seeds, by the way.
Okay.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, everyone.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes,
Afef, right now I can answer with certainty one thing: life, it's not a utopia for sure. And anytime I'm trying to find some answers to big questions or small questions, I'm always trying to observe nature. And I realize that when you don't want to involve. You are programmed by nature to involve. And this is never something that comes easy. Life itself, it's not a straight line. You have to fight for the 80% of your life in order to have a 20% of happiness. So right now, if we are compassing or we have this huge interpretation that we're having a difficult situation, still, this is life. So I'm looking forward for the next bright moments in order for the balance to come. Either way or not, balance will prevail. And if these very moments we are not feeling so strong, or we're experiencing all the troubles in the world, from Russia to Singapore and then back to Taiwan or to the Middle East, the core of the problems remains the same. We love life, we want to evolve, and sorry, but there is not an easy way. The most easy way is to cooperate among, to provide actually the framework for cooperation between our communities, because we are supposed to be intelligent. We have intelligence as human beings, because if you ask the rest of the animals in the nature's kingdom, they're not questioning themselves. Are we going to deal with this solution, or are we going to do that? No, they are only they have only a three-rule thing. They want to find shelter, they want to find food, and they want to reproduce themselves. So every time that this home frame becomes very chaotic or difficult to comprehend, when I came back to the roots, then I realized that, okay, this is a bad time, but I'm looking forward for the next bright time. So either you are worried or not, things are gonna change. And if they're not gonna change, always remember the change that you have provided to yourself. Look your children in the eye and look what you have created. Listen again to the music that you have written. See the eyes of your friend in order to remember who you are. If for a moment you just forgot or you felt overwhelmed by the whole things. And at the end of the day, we are troublemakers, but we also provide solutions. We have to create troubles in order to provide solutions. Otherwise, we are going to provide solutions that doesn't apply anywhere. So please keep being a troublemaker, and the others will find the solutions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to end the segment. I would like, before going to the next and final segment, to share with you, if no one else read it on the chat, we have a comment from YouTube from Mrs. I think Camila Sultanova. She said, warm greetings from Finland. Thanks for sharing your inputs. Ghana, Russia, or Finland. Poverty alleviation will be a big topic. Bread to mouth perspective was clear. Community work is a solution. And that's a beautiful way from a beautiful person who's given us this beautiful comment to finish this beautiful segment. Now I'm gonna leave the stage, if we can say this, to my host, Esenam, Nyador, that I love so much. She's going to talk about this, about how your ongoing project and intervention may help local population to cope with low psychological resilience level or untangling new or fortnightly social, cultural, and economic barrier imposed. That's a big title for this segment. So please, Esenam.
This was huge. Listen, if you want any kind of help, we're here, okay? Don't be shy. This wasn't a title. This was encyclopedia itself. But okay, guys, keep on.
It's a whole thesis on its own. Thank you, Afem. Thank you so much. So let me start from borrowing some phrases from Lazarus. Lazarus made mention of change. Change would always come. It's we, the human beings, that would create the problems and again create the. We might be creating solutions to a society that has no need. I want to believe that we all were pumped up. I remember the 3 days we spent in Korea. Personally, I was so gingered listening to the diverse stories of change going on around the world. I was so much pumped up. I came back home with so many ideas. And I believe it's the same for all of us. Before COVID hit, we had a blueprint of what we wanted to achieve in our individual organizations or in our private or individual initiatives that we were running. And then COVID came knocking. And the questions come back to us that do we still need to continue with the original blueprint, or have things changed to the point that we need to alter the blueprint of our projects. As Afef read out the thesis topic as a description of our new or existing project that we are working on, and how our interventions or projects or initiatives support the population or the society in which we live in, how these supports and help them cope with low psychological resilience, and all in societal and economic and cultural barriers. To look at our own initiatives that we are embarking on, or we've been embarking on all this time before COVID hit. Has something changed? Do we have the need to change our blueprint? The society or the population we planned to have them benefit from our initiatives. Has something changed about that population? Is the solution still, or things have changed so drastically that we need to change the approach of how population we have planned to help? Psychological resilience comes in so many ways. The will to fight with the changing phenomenon in our lives, the will to see solutions out of our, and so on and so forth. Economical problems have come, cultural problems have come. We realize there's a need to restructure our interactions. And we want to ask, how are our interventions helping the population that we have pledged to help? How are interventions going to help them restructure their lives in terms of the changes that have come with them? I'll start with a very quick example from my end, personally, or from my organization's end. To train more women to take up driving as a profession, to drive buses, to drive trucks, and to drive smaller vehicles. And then COVID hits. So that even the market that we have planned to inject has shrunk. Number one, for example, we have seen hotels coming to a screeching halt. So much hotels closed down for a long time, for about a year. And even when, as at this present month, things are beginning to pick up, the hotels are even, and the whole tourism industry is, let me put it, is taking so much time to even start crawling on the ground. So the markets that we thought was so much ready and ripe to take up our women when we trained them, we realized was shrinking. Struggling businesses aren't ready to take up or invest in new stuff because it means that they would have to cough out the money to pay them. And this is money non-existent to all these struggling businesses. So then we asked ourselves, how were we going to alter our operations in delivering another solution that was so much needed in this time? So what happened to our drawing board is that we looked at a section of a population we thought or we knew would benefit from altering our, decided to look at young graduates or women who were very to graduate from their studies. And we zoomed in into the marketing graduates. So bachelors in marketing, or yeah, Bachelor of Science in Marketing. And we took this population on because we have anecdotal evidence that states that when both male and female graduates of marketing graduate from their studies in the universities, the male graduates tend to get jobs very quickly, vis-a-vis the female graduates. And one big factor for this evidence was the fact that the male graduates already have driving skills, which the ladies don't have. And for an economy that is struggling, it wouldn't be in the best interest of an employer to employ a marketing graduate and again invest in the services of a driver to drive her around her working geographical space just because she didn't know how to drive. So then we needed to alter our mode of delivering of our interventions and chose another whole set of population who we knew could benefit immediately from our scope of work. Hence, I would want to ask the team or gathering here, have you had a moment of awakening, asking yourselves as to whether there was a need to start a new initiative altogether, or do you have the need to alter existing initiatives or projects that your organizations are undertaking or would have to undertake to serve a whole new support system for a population, either a new population or an existing population you work with, them cope with low psychological resistance, to help them barriers, economic barriers, and cultural barriers. If any one of us do have any story to share so far as altering or starting a whole new intervention based on the current pandemic situation is concerned, the floor is open for you to share. Anyone ready to share?
I can take the floor if possible.
Okay, thank you.
So exactly as Ms. Esenam has put it, long before the lockdown, also my initiative was mainly targeting the tourism industry. And because of the lockdown and what happened due to the epidemic outbreak, we ended up losing almost an entire season, which left us with no cash flow or revenue for almost entirely a year before even our government suggested that they will bring out supportive measures for all industry or for all professionals or companies engaged in the so-called industries of frontline. And we realized on that point that there was a turning time for us. And thus, from building an operational base regarding us being more intrusive to markets, us being able to operate in larger markets, or us even establishing new products in the familiar markets we were already operational, we realized that this huge turnabout in terms of mentality, in terms of psychological resilience, should drive us into research again. Thus, in this year, in 2021, we took a U-turn, and from going directly into the market, we went back into research. Thus, in order to develop a new system, a new operational approach, a new methodology of communication, a new introductory to our thematics and the content of our activities. And for those of you who don't know what we do, we are into the gamification of knowledge business, which means that we are operating scenarios upon which we help people develop their self in so many different ways. For example, we have different scenarios in terms of intensive for companies, We have different scenarios for individuals. We have different scenarios for kids, different scenarios for adults. But the worst case scenario struck on our door. And the worst case scenario was the fact that as proven by the pandemic, and do allow me a small parenthesis here, I don't believe we are facing an epidemic or a pandemic. I believe we are facing a syndemic that applies both on societal, economic, and so many different levels, that the health issue is just part of them. So closing the parenthesis, I realized that there were too many factors to ignore. So for us, the whole idea was to throw a red line on the sand and say that we will not cross this line in terms of marketing our products or spending more money on communicating our products, rather than investing on how to develop new mechanisms of interacting with our employees, how to find a way to make our employees be strong again. How do we cope with their low psychological resilience level? How do we help people that recently became parents, as in the case of Jasmine, or recently have lost a person on their close circle, or even people that weren't able to identify on how this epidemic will affect them. To make a long story short, I believe that although we have discussed it before, I know that the mentality was there, but I realized when organizing this meeting alongside with many of you that it's not a way of thinking to open up to other people. It has to do a lot with the fact that we are not keen on identifying how other people will perceive our us asking for help. Thus, I wanted to say that it was about time we felt deep in our veins and in our souls that us being change maker means that, first of all, we are open to ask for help. And for me, it was of great importance that during this year, I had the enormous support of Ms. Esenam in so many different cases, discussing so many different things, and not only projects, that actually made me realize that what makes us change makers is the fact that we are willing to open up to change that other people may introduce to our way of thinking. So for me, this is the core concept that will change in my business model. Our business will stay forever on open to different mental approaches, to different approaches of the main thematics. I know by heart now that I will be joining forces with kids, with adults, with people from all around the globe, just to keep an open mind for me, my partners, and the business as well. And also my employees, because it so happened that I realized that if I didn't have you as a family to interact with, probably I would have gone wrong in so many ways that I couldn't even start to imagine. And because frustration, it's something that it's not easily dealt with, I believe that, as already said, I need to take a stand for all those populations on the move. I need to take a stand to be supportive for all those populations in need, because this is the new era. And in this new era, the population on the move will be in larger numbers than established societies itself. And what I came to realize, and I want to share with you people, is that I believe that established societies are under threat because of the cultural shift that population on the move brings along with them. And they won't go back because they don't have any place to go to, and they don't have any place to turn to, because even though UN doesn't feel like recognizing them under the term climatological refugees or climate refugees or pandemic refugees or syndemic refugees, we as changemaker have already met with them. And we know that the person who left their houses in some areas didn't do it out of war conflicts or anything else. They did it because of climate change. And at the same time, I believe I need to turn my projects into an educational platform, not educational, probably establishing learning trajectories for my societal interactions here in Greece, and thus they need to be built in a way that people won't resist them. And this is the reason why we decided that the best approach should be us to create games and to gamify the way we want to share this knowledge, because when you're entering a game, then you will one way or another learn yourself and learn things, because game includes learning in so many levels that we didn't even started to imagine. And this is what we've been exploring. So on my case, and I hope in the case of the many, we changed our mentality, and now we believe we need to be agents of this change, not only on talking about it, but acting upon it. And for such a purpose, I'm willing to open up to as many of you as possible, to introduce you to our projects, to introduce you to our ideas, and we will be willing to have you all on board. And just to close my small introduction on this thematic, big shout out to Finland, and big shout out to our friend from the BDC family, because Camila has been a change maker all her life, and I know that she's up there doing her job, and I want to give a big shout out to her and be thankful that we have her along today. But for me, we as change makers need to open up a communication channel that won't be flooded by unrealistic information, and put our heads straight down to work. I believe, to summarize it, it's we are fed up with talking. Let's do work.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Mario. Any other person wants to share what life their initiatives took or had before the pandemic, syndemic, so far as Mario is concerned? How was your initiative living before the syndemic, and has anything changed after the phenomenon? Have you got the reason to rethink through your initiative and say solutions are needed for a particular A, B, C, D, hence we needed to reconstruct or re-alter the delivery mode of our initiative to help others solve a current issue? Anyone has any story to share along that line?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. Here is Roque from Chile.
Okay, so great. Okay.
What I was talking about trees is I usually planted 300, 100, 500 trees every year in winter. And then pandemic came, and all my project, I went to Buenos Aires, had meeting with big company to plant 1,000 trees that year. And all came down, but I went into a water innovation lab and I won a funding in a project I call iForest. And it's about planting a tree at your home. That happened to me. I couldn't plant trees in the mountain or in the parks. So I planted a tree at home, and that transformed me a lot and give me another point of view of my work, like bringing it in home, bring it in home. And I'm now have to do a video, and I'm...
Or did we lose you? Okay.
Sorry?
At a point, I thought we had lost you. At a point, I thought you had finished your submission. But then you can go on, okay.
Yeah, sorry that my connection is so bad. But yes, that's what happened. I used to plant trees everywhere. Now I plant tree at home, and then bring me back and make a huge transformation. And I'm doing a little project about it. So I have to make a video. And I don't know, I will share many stories, but I want to listen more. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Roque. Thank you so much for your other person wants to share any major changes in their
Can I share? Can I share?
definitely James.
So here in the Philippines right now, we're still currently in lockdown, and um, in my line of work, basically, we used to do a lot of art events and cultural events,
Mhm.
and obviously it took a toll. Like when the lockdown happened, people couldn't go to our events anymore. We couldn't have theater productions. We can't have any other live productions, and it was kind of also frustrating because the government and other people were saying, "Oh, we don't need that right now. It's not essential work," um, and stuff like that. And we we were it kind of hurt. It really hurt because to a certain extent, everything that we've been doing at home, like the things that have been keeping you preoccupied, the shows you've been watching, the books you've been reading, and all that, that's part of art, right? That's part of creation and the part of creative work. And some people don't believe it's essential, and I feel like we just need to reevaluate that word essential. Like things that give us life, right? And a big part of culture, like all of our different cultures, like for example in Greece we have Greek mythology. For example, in Russia, we have ballet, stuff like that. All these things, different things that give us um, the purpose of, like, living, a thing like that. And having being put at a very, everything was at halt and everything stopped. So we kind of lost our passion. A lot of us were reevaluating ourselves, like, was it really non-essential? Was it really not important to people? But then it also kind of made us hungrier in that sense that no, it is essential. It's what keeps us going. And we found different ways. We found creative ways to, like, bring it, like, on different platforms. Theater actors started to learn how to use live streaming as an option, like open readings of different scripts, and people were singing online, and people were streaming their songs. There are a lot of creative ways, but at the end of the day, we still miss that live interaction when you're watching a theater production. That face to face experience, that expression you see on that micro expression you see on that person's face as compared to when you see them on screen. There's still that detachment, but I think people are being more creative in finding innovative ways to put the essence of the real essential aspect of culture and how that needs to be constantly worked on. Like people are learning different ways and we're doing different things to make it still relevant. And I feel that's a very important discussion, not just in the economical aspect, like the cultural aspect of us, of everyone here. How do you keep it alive when you're all locked up in your own rooms? And you know, um, I think that really took a toll on the live events and the creative sector, especially here. Because until now we're still left with no idea what's going to happen next. Cases are rising, and sad to say, the government is pretty much scattered. They don't know what to do. I mean, they're telling people they have everything under control, but clearly you see it's not under control. Vaccination is still not happening, like limited resources, everything. And even with me saying all these things, I still come from a place of privilege where I can detach myself and see it. But more people are living with, like, the harsh reality that they need to survive, and that's why they feel like culture is not essential right now. What is essential for me is to live and survive. That's where it's sad, but then you also understand where everything's coming from. Yeah,
I'd
that's
like
it.
I'd like to add one point according to what James just told us. Nevertheless, I personally was working or was organizing music festivals, so I am a guy that comes from the creative and the music sector, and I realized that there is one thing that can be substituted in no way. This is the human touch, the feeling when you get into a live concert and you are receiving
Yes,
the vibration from the
yes,
speakers and you have other people surround you dancing
Yeah,
or
yeah,
even singing together. This thing cannot be manipulated, cannot be exchanged by any technology, as far as I know, augmented reality, whatever you can imagine. And believe me, I'm a guy that I am deep dive into the technologies. So I don't want to wait to upload my consciousness into a cloud in order to live forever. I want to grab a beer, some good friends, and go out to a festival, go out to a theater, listen a live poetry or pop or Latin salsa. I don't care. I just miss the live thing. And I believe that this thing slowly will take its place. I don't know if we are going to create a new Woodstock with 2 million people, but at least a concert with 10 people will be enough. But the main question is, are we going to have the vaccination passport in order to have the right or the ability to live in a proper way? Because, you know, again, these fundamentals that someone tells you, look, you're going to live a life, you have to do this vaccination. And if I am someone who doesn't believe in science, believe in outer space or in God, and I believe that the cure will come for someone else, still, I will be a minority within the minority without rights at all. So when the time will come, in order to reach to, you know, if a big concert, we, and I say we, I mean us as a community, we have to provide small steps. We know about the big picture, but I'm not sure if everyone else is able to perceive the big picture. And instead of wasting time trying to convince people, small steps are going to bring the results that we're dreaming of. And there is a very nice proverb that I heard in Korea, but also applies also to the Greek mentality that says 1 kilo of thinking equals to 1 gram of action. If I can summarize it like this.
yeah.
Thank you, James, for this assist.
Thank you, Lazarus. Thank you, James, too. And the 2 submissions. Yeah, Lazarus, you wanted to make...
No, I wanted to say something on Lazarus, to continue on something that Lazarus said. It's not about
Mario.
having a mentality against or towards the treatment in terms of vaccines. It has to do with the fact, can I take this without being harmed? Because nobody seems to care about the people with autoimmune diseases, the people with chronic diseases, because I know that from a fact, I cannot have the vaccine because I have thrombophilia, which means that a vaccine such as this one might kill me. So I need to go back living also. It's not only about people having a mentality towards being injected with, I don't know what they feel like they will be injected, like microchips or whatever, but I'm talking about simple people that want to be part of living, and they are not given the opportunity.
You're totally right, Mario. But something also came up with the 2 submissions of James and then Lazarus. I realized something in the 2 submissions, that this pandemic has actually taken away our quest to live. And now everything has geared towards science to the extent that we've forgotten we need to live. So I realize culture has diminished. Anything about our cultural society has diminished. Now it's almost on the survival of humanity. So it's the medical aspect of humanity and then the economic aspect of humanity. But let's think about it. Before the pandemic came in, even though we had Sherry, hello, I saw you raise up your hand. Oh, okay. So, and Paulina too. Okay. So after my submission, you can please join in and help contribute. But before the pandemic, as I was saying, we had our own economic issues, but we were still living. We managed to live and live life, irrespective of the challenges we were going through. And I have also realized that the funding industry or the donor funding platform now the science aspect of it. It's funding for research here, research there, and it looks like we have forgotten we need to live, because I need to live to have my sanity, to be able to participate in the society as our way forward. But then if we are almost shutting down the aspect of we living, and now all or most initiatives and most funding and most energy and all conversation is gearing towards the science aspect of it. It's like, by the time you fix the science aspect of it, would I still be living as a human being to partake in the solution you bring in? And this is what I have realized through James and Lazarus' submission. I would go over to Sherry. Did you have anything to share? Paulina, I saw your hands raised up. Please let me know.
I think Paulina was saying bye, but it's okay. I can share.
Okay.
Yeah, she has left, but it's okay. So one thing that we did before pandemic was to volunteer in person at the destitute home. So once that had to stop, we had to turn to Zoom volunteering, which no one has done such a thing before. But I also realized some opportunities that brought us, because sometimes we can't bring in certain professionals into the homes due to their time and schedule. So Zoom kind of gave us that opportunity. And James, I realized how important arts were, especially during Zoom volunteering, because we didn't really know what to do during that Zoom when there is the internet connection is not that great. The kind of communication is kind of limited with the people that we are volunteering with. So it gave us this opportunity to actually engage a ballet dancer from Jakarta, someone that I knew like a year ago, and she was so eager to do it. And I didn't know the lockdown situation in Indonesia now, actually. So when I saw her performance and I asked her, actually, where is this place that you're performing? She said, oh, I cleaned the rooftop of my house. So she was actually performing under the hot sun on the rooftop of her house. And then she had to clean it so that she could put mattresses there, and then the bar, the berry bar. Yeah. So, and they was really sweating it out. We could tell it was so sunny in Jakarta under the hot sun, and they were dancing ballet for us. Wow. So, and I was very touched by her. It was tearing at the end of the 5 minutes dance, and I thought, wow, how arts can actually touch our hearts even through the screen. So I want to say it's not non-essential. It's really important. So I guess we learn how to do Zoom volunteering, though it will never replace the in-person volunteering, because every time we go onto Zoom, the residents always ask us, when are you coming again? When are you coming again? And it kind of breaks our heart because we don't have an answer to that. Yeah, and I think just one or two little points that I want to make is, like I said, the invisible communities remain invisible. So we are, because of the pandemic, we are quite privileged and lucky in a way to access quite a bit of funding here to benefit whichever communities that we wanted to work with. And I'm happy to share that because of the pandemic, I accessed a private funding that has allowed me to set up like a community toy library for parents with young children with special needs. And that is something, I know that's quite common in other countries. I've tried to Google a bit, but here it's just not so common. And because we have this like buy and throw kind of mentality, but we also hope that the library will make things more sustainable where parents don't have to keep buying and discarding it when their child outgrows it, but maybe they could return it to us and we can just like circulate it among the economy. But that being said, during this pandemic, I realized that to be able to sustain as a change maker, I somehow need to find a way to pay myself. I've not been paid for the couple of years that I've been a change maker. So I don't know how long that will sustain because it cuts into my mental health. And I want to tell everyone here, Mario, I shared with you, please take better care of yourself because I think if you want to make change, something that I tell myself, we just have to take care of ourselves and be in good shape, whether physically or mentally as well. Yeah, that's the end of my sharing.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you
Sherry.
so much for
Thank
this.
you. That was very touching. It hit home. It really hit home for me. Any other contribution?
So, Ms. Esenam, if I'm allowed. Okay,
yes,
because we have reached the limit of the 3 hours live on YouTube, I just would love you all if you have something final to share with all of us, because our live feed will close in a few minutes on YouTube, and I wanted you all to share what you feel like at the moment. I'm really proud of you all, and do excuse me for making this interruption at this moment of our. Do excuse me about it. Ms. Esenam, the floor is yours for the closing.
Okay. What I have come to learn with this new development since last year, for me, I have come to love myself more. I never knew one thing about me, that my happiness came out of serving other people and running through initiatives and starting and ending ones. But then the whole pandemic caused me to come to a screeching halt and give myself some moments to rejuvenate myself and give some love back to myself and appreciate me as a love my beneficiaries of our initiative. I want to love myself more, and a phenomenon has brought back into my life a little time for myself and loving myself. Thank you very much. I throw it back to the floor if anyone wants to take it up for the final comments. Thank you.
Hi, this
Jasmine
is Han. Can you say hi? I wanted to also say that through parenting in a pandemic, I actually had to repair my relationship with my child and my family, because before the pandemic, I was so stressed. I didn't realize I was causing my child a lot of stress as well. And I came to realize that they have their own voice, they have their own opinion, they are born, they really I've learned that no child thinks that they have a bad idea. Every idea is a good idea. And through witnessing my child grow, I realize how much we lose as we get older, like what's taken away from us by authorities, what's taken away from us by people with power. So I wanted to take inspiration from children, to really observe them and see what we can learn from them, and to not assume people don't have a voice is that power has been taken away from them, and how can we use what we have to give that power back. So I just wanted to end on that note.
Anyone else on the final round? Lazarus, Katerina, James, anyone?
Okay. I will play that role. So please, Sherry or Catalina or James, take the mic and listen with some nice vibrations and mood.
Yeah. Okay, I'll take the floor. But honestly, I do not know what should I say. Really, I was thinking that by the end of, when everyone finished, I can, think about something by then. I just want to say that I think that we should really pay a lot of attention to our mental health, not only our physical health. And also, I want to thank you for applause to the people who put this together. Hope we're gonna do it again.
Roque?
Yeah, I'm
Roque.
back.
Okay. Hit us.
Hit us. What is that?
Hit us with a final message.
All right.
Do you love us a little bit or no?
Do you want some love?
Yes.
I have a bigger heart. It's like this.
Of course, you are the man who is in love with nature. So
yeah, I think the last message is about be open to new stuff, transformation, and stand strong and sweet as possible, and be close to the people you love and share good stories.
Nice. Thank you so much, Rock from Chill out, man. Chill out. Cool.
Can I share just 3 things from my end? Okay, so I'm gonna abbreviate it with BTC. So that's the Better Together Challenge. So I think 3 things. 1, believe. Continue to believe in yourself and also in society, even with how things are so difficult right now. Believe that we will still get better, and continue to believe in yourself. That's very important. Even with all the challenges and everything, it's all about you. It's still like you're the only one who can, you believe. Trust. So it's also about learning the trust and the truth, and learning to know trust the truth, because with everything that's happening now, there's so much fake news, there's so much noise and everything. Trust in the true things that you believe in, and trust in the truth that society shares with you. I think it's very important that we really remember that in society, we're still communal beings, even if we're closed down from each other. Things like this, I'm putting so much trust with what I'm sharing to all of you, because I trust that what you guys shared are your own personal truths, and that's beautiful. And I feel like we need to learn to understand that how important it is to trust. And of course, change. Not necessarily change how you look. People in the pandemic have been trying to come up with different hairstyles, or like changing their color of their hair, or like changing the clothes, changing their lifestyle, changing their life, how they work out and all that. I think that's a given, because that's something that we're doing constantly. People change. But what I'm saying is the important thing that we change is our attitude when it comes to consistency. So consistency, is the thing that drives us to be disciplined, that drives us to continue moving forward. And consistency, we need to change the mindset in that we can't do it, because like that's the only thing that's prohibiting us from actually moving forward. So again, you need to believe, you need to trust in order to change. So yeah, that's what I just want to share with everyone here. I love you, everyone. I love everyone. I love and miss all of you. My God,
It
so
was
alive today.
totally, I couldn't ask for anything more beautiful to close this meeting today. The fellowship of the changemakers of the Better Together Challenge of 2019 from all over the world, from Africa, from the States, from Asia, from all around the world are thinking the same thing that James has put in 3 single words: believe, trust, and change will come as a result. So if you're willing to bring forth your truth, then this means that you're willing to change, and change starts from within. We would like to thank you all for watching us today. We would like to thank all the participants on behalf of the organizing fellowship. For those of you who want to share this content, it will be available on this channel for the next month. So whomever feels like downloading it or sharing it, it will be available. And once again, I want to thank you on behalf of everyone that has worked for this meeting to come to life, and wish you the best for the best yet to come. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a marvelous evening, and thank you all.
Thank you all. I'm so grateful that I see you today. Take care, be brave, and keep in mind it's going to be a second meeting. And don't question yourselves, because I believe that deep inside of us, everyone knows much about what our hearts are beating of. So do not question yourself. Be brave. Go ahead, and don't forget that you have a global family that whenever you want, pick up the phone, send a message, and I guess that will be there. All right. Much love to everyone.
Would it be possible for Han to say the final goodbye? Hi, Han.
He's already hard. Can you
Hi,
say bye-bye,
Han.
everyone?
Hey.
Can you hear that?
And for all my Asian brothers and sisters, be looking out for me. I might be knocking on your doors because Southeast Asia is my destination for retirement. That one, trust me.
Nice.
Everyone, take care. Have a great evening and good night.
Take care.
Good morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye.